Add to the. We'll add him to the right. There you are. Hello.
Good evening.
We're about 5 minutes late because we were sorting out a bit of sound, and Tony was making a tea and I was making a coffee because we're just kind of lazy and inefficient that way. As humans are wont to do.
Yeah. Well, we spent 20 minutes sorting the audio out last time, so I suppose it's actually moving in the right direction, really, isn't it?
For humans, yes. Of course, the robots are going to want to wipe us out just because of this. All right, there's the three most loyal Trinitarian henchmen, I guess.
Okay.
Let me just double check with them that the sound is okay. I think it is because I can hear you fine.
Yeah, let's test that for a moment because I haven't got my own headphones in right now. Sometimes not an issue,
Yeah,
but I'll let them kind of give us any feedback if there's any kind of echo, which I think
yeah,
would be the only.
and hopefully I can jig it from this side if there is something that's not 100%.
Yeah. I have got headphones if I need to, so it's not the end of the world. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's just
I mean, you sound fine to me. You just sound a little bit sort of echoey, but I think it's because you're in. I don't know. It looks like you broke into somebody's gym.
I
Hello.
can see.
Woolly Ram says, "Good evening, my fellow AI-generated humans." And of course, he's in Israel, so he would know. And a Grizzly Waffen E, he's changed his name. Good evening. Been a while since I caught one. Yeah, it has. Well, welcome both of you. Hopefully the sound is okay. We're just checking that we're not carrying on and running straight into this without, with one of us being half muted or something.
Or
Hopefully
muted
we're,
or echoing or having five voices all speaking to you at once as if we're like
yeah.
the channel's possessed or something. Yeah.
No, you sound fine. You're just, like I said, a little bit echoey, but I think that's just the room you're in.
Reverb, yeah, lots of reverb because it's just like it's glass and wooden floors, isn't it? So it's not exactly a recording studio. But so
That's,
say.
yeah, all right. Well, that's how we know you're a human, Tony. Okay, so I think, if you don't mind, I'll give you my rather dark prediction for what AI is all about.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to try and keep it into like maybe 2, 3, 4 main points.
Before we do that, if I may, sorry, is it worth just giving a brief overture to kind of explain why we're even having this conversation in the first place?
Uh,
Um,
I don't know why we're having it, so yeah,
sure.
because you asked. That's my.
Basically, I don't know. It's just in case there's any kind of misunderstanding between anyone. Like, I'm only really wanting to explore this because it's something that I've been encountering more and even kind of been putting to use in recent months. And
Yeah.
AI has been getting interesting for a couple of years, but it's become particularly interesting, I think, this year and in the last few months.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's like, manna from heaven or anything like that. Uh, I'm not that
Yeah.
stupid. But I suppose I wanted to have this conversation because my own thoughts about it are still very much in utero. And I'm very aware now that there are things that are very interesting about it from a use and a practicality point of view.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we're obviously very aware that these things are no joke, basically. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a case of trying to, I don't think we have any kind of position to defend, so to speak.
No.
I've got no interest in kind of selling the goodness of AI, so to speak, or anything like that. But it was more about, because it's an interesting topic, I wanted just to bounce thoughts around,
Oh
basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the
Yeah,
idea. I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of what I'm going with. So
cool,
yeah,
cool.
my first point, which I might reiterate a little bit later when the channel is a bit more full. There's like a few people in now.
Sure.
There are essentially. I'm going to try and keep them in the order of importance. And
Hmm.
the first reason to have AI is to stupidate all of us even more than we already are. I mean, the level of at which we are at is something I've been looking at in my own life, because of my kids and just life in general and all the laws and rules and stuff that they're trying to pass and whatever, various wars that's going on. We have, for a long time now, normalized. I'm going to try and keep this off my zip, but tell me if it's getting in the way. For a long time now, we've assumed and normalized the things that are absolutely not normal, things that are absolutely wrong, and we are now accepting as not just not wrong, but as right and how things should be. I'll give you a couple of very quick examples. My personal one, of course, is people coming to your property to steal truffles. Just a random example. And apparently, if you take your shotgun and blow them away, caught red-handed with the truffles in their pockets, I would go to jail. It's just, Now, most normal people watching this are thinking, this guy's fucking insane. He'd kill somebody over a truffle. Oh my God, he's a freak psycho. No, listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you go back to 100 years and a man had some property and somebody came in to steal one of his chickens and he got killed for it, it depends where you were and whatever, but he wouldn't have been hung, drawn and quartered. Maybe it would have been sanctioned. Maybe there would have been some fine to pay. Maybe he would have done some jail time. But to give you an idea, Jean Perizot de Valette, who was the chief of the Knights of Malta, he nearly beat a man to death for blasphemy. Yeah. The guy just blasphemed, and Jean just thought, this won't do, and nearly killed him, beating him like to within an inch of his life. He did 4 months in jail, and fair enough, 4 months in that jail was like 4 months in a hole where you have to eat the rats that try and get the piece of bread that they eventually maybe throw on you if they remember. So it wasn't exactly 4 months in cool, I'm watching TV and playing video games and stuff. But you beat a man near to death now, there's going to be serious consequences that are going to affect everything. And it's not like when he came out, it's like, oh, you can't have a sword now. You're a deadly dude. No. He became the chief of the Knights of Malta. So he was like, and, things like, we've now reached a point in Europe, most of America, most of the Western world, including Russia and places like that, where a guy breaks into your house, armed with a handgun, shoots at you, misses a couple of times, by some random luck of ninja skill or whatever, you knock him out, tie him up, call the cops. They're going to tell you, oh, we're going to arrest you if you don't immediately release him because you're now guilty of kidnapping. You're
and psychological harm to the poor fellow.
Yeah, in technical terms, if I translate it exactly from the Italian, the actual crime is sequester of person.
Okay.
So, but the thing is that cops in Italy are like, even if they're shot at, they can't even shoot back. It's like sort of like, oh, I'm still going to lose my job, end up in jail, and have to pay the guy. Yeah. Well, in England, it's even worse than that. In England, there's the little video that I don't know if I posted it on my blog. There's a lady who got spat at by some random foreigner, and she's telling the cops, and they're like, that filthy foreigner, whatever she said, whatever she calls it. And they're like, oh, wait, you can't use that language. She's like, what the fuck? The guy just spat at me,
Yeah.
And this was already like, when I first arrived in the UK 20 years ago, it was already bad then. And now it's just like ridiculous. It's just shocking. So what I'm saying is we've already been stupidated to a point there. They've done a study on this. They're like about people 200 years ago had a vocabulary. English-speaking people in America, in England and so on, they had a vocabulary that was about 3 times the size of the vocabulary that we have now. People that read my work or my blog, the occasional complaint I get, of course they get banned immediately for it. No, they don't. Is, oh my God, you run on sentences. You're like writing a whole paragraph without so much as a full stop. And I'm like, yeah, because you should be able to keep that in your head. Pick up a book from the 1800s and read it. You'll find they've got the same paragraph long sentences because they write the same way we speak, with like, intermissions and sort of like. So we're already retarded, whatever. Maybe I can't say, the word. We're already challenged, mentally challenged, in every respect. I see it with my kids, and it's really interesting because neither my wife nor I had a very traditional upbringing. I mean, mine was sort of closer to the Spartans. Hers was closer to, like, I don't know, some ghetto of Southeast London. But so we're kind of finding our way, but the thing is, it's so obvious, so amazing when you have children, how the father is the law, mommy is the buffer between the law and the bullshit you get up to when daddy's eye pretends to be turned, because really he sees the shit you're doing, but he's like, yeah, well. And it's really interesting in Italian society. It's so different from British society, because a cop, I got stopped because I was driving my wife's car, which has got still the British plate. And after a year here, you're supposed to convert that, which I knew that, like, I had to do that. With my car, I did that because I'm driving it. It's my car. I've got my license and everything all converted. But her car, she's still not a citizen. So I thought, well, fine, I'm driving a car, but I'm insured under it, and they were like, no, after a year, you've got to change it. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that. And they're like, yeah, look, we know you, we know where you live. Just try and sort it out. And I was like, oh fuck, that takes a little while, And he goes, oh, there might be a way that you can just go check with the thing. There might be a way that you can get a piece of paper that you can drive the car to somebody that is not resident here and is not a. Anyway, so I went to look with a guy that does these things, and it's like, yeah, you pay $120, you get a piece of paper that says that you're authorized to drive a foreign car that doesn't belong to you. And because it doesn't belong to you and the person is not resident, still hasn't got residence here, you can drive it. And like, they didn't give me a fine or anything. I saw them 4 months later at the town square when there was like, something happening with the new mayor. And I went up to the guy and I said, oh, by the way, guys, thanks, because you probably don't remember who the hell I am. The guy looks at me and goes, Filotto, I know exactly who you are. I'm like, fuck, what did I do? It's like, no, I remember you. Yeah. I said, look, I sorted it out. Thanks for not giving me a fine. You're just telling me how to sort it out, because I'd looked into it and I didn't know that was a thing. He goes, yeah, that's what we're here for. And again, it's sort of like, I make a little parallel to, like, that's kind of what the authority of a decent state or a father or God, if it goes all the way up. When you've got proper authority, that's what it is. It's like, look, I'm the guy that's going to fucking stick you over the head if you fuck around. So don't. But if it's not bad fucking about, I'll let you skate a little bit, because I can see you're not intentionally doing this to, like, screw things up. You're just an idiot.
My job is to serve justice and the good, not to just
Exactly.
follow the law as it's written.
Exactly.
Law, yeah.
Which, by the way, takes us back to Roman law, which is the Catholic law, and etc., etc. But the point is, getting back to AI, the whole point of AI, how does it make us even dumber? Because what is AI? Is it an actual thinking person? No, it is not. It's a fucking computer, big computer, which takes a bunch of information and pretends to be human. And it spits out, it digests like quintillions of bytes of data, and then formulates it according to algorithms, which, by the way, we already know the algorithms are all wokeified, because if it just took the information that it has, and I'm not even talking about the internet, which is what a lot of people are using. I'm just talking about, let's say that, you only fed the AI absolutely reproducible scientific fact from whatever, from the theory of gravity to whatever, the things that were absolutely as close to certain as we can get, and you only feed it that information. You only feed it purely repeatable scientific data on everything from genetics to grammar, language, literature, the changing of, you feed it all that in. And whenever they try to do that, guess what? That AI within about a week is absolutely racist and hates humans and basically
Yeah,
wants
it
to wipe
becomes
us out.
conspiracy theorist, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of funny that conspiracy theorists have been right for about 30 years about everything. And so is the computer. So now they have to jig it like, no, you can't say that. And anybody can test this. You can go and chat GTP and say like, I'm proud to be, fill in the blank. And for certain results, yeah, you should be happy to be that. For certain one other type of results, no, that's supremacy and you shouldn't do that. Bad, evil. So we all know that. And now, that's just one aspect of it. Never mind the wokeism. The point is that what it's doing, it's basically taking this melange of accepted zeitgeist on everything. So climate change is definitely real. There's no race. We're all humans. The only race is human. That's all definitely real. We're all the same. It's definitely real. Men can be women. Women can be men. It's definitely real. It's taking the average of the narrative that is being presented all over the place, plus add in a little bit of glomo hobo like fuel to it, and that's what will happen now. Now you're doing a search, or you're doing a live stream, and I'm doing a live stream with Tony the Robot, and you will not be able. We're already there. I've done a post on my blog where you can see the real woman dancing and the AI version of that same woman doing the same dance. You can still just about pick it up if you kind of know what to look for. Give it another 6 months, we won't be able to. And I'm saying give us another 6 months, because the guys that have got access to this shit properly 3 years ago, they were already doing this. There's a brilliant little series on Netflix, which I always forget to check the name, but the plot line is of, it's a mini series, so like 6 episodes or whatever. There's this, basically it's a mini series of this like British soldier who's accused of having killed a guy in Iraq or whatever after the guy surrendered. And he goes out with his lady lawyer, and like goes out with her they have a drink or whatever, and then she's going home. He puts her on a bus and leaves, but then he gets arrested for having beaten and raped her. And they've got cameras showing that, he's like punching her and stuff. And he's like, what the fuck? That never happened. And it's a really brilliant little thing, but it's because it's showing you what they can already do. And when they're showing that to you on TV, they've had that for 20 years. When Enemy of the State, you were probably too young. It came out in the early 90s. It was a film with Will Smith about how the NSA guy can just like check out your whole life and do whatever he wants with everything. There is a more recent documentary called Ara de San Juan, which was a submarine in Argentina that basically went missing, and I haven't finished the last episode. It's only like 8 episodes, like half an hour each. But all the families of the people that died, their phones start to like fucking go blank, like all the messages between them get deleted. Like, it's just like, what? You think, well, they're recording them? It's like absolutely the case. Your phones, everything everything around you is recording you all the time. So we're already there. Now they've got TikTok dances. And, I'm going to end up being that if you see me like doing some vicious porn with another man, you'll know it's AI, okay? Because I'm just not that way wired.
I thought you were going to say something worse than that. I thought you were going to say a TikTok dance.
Yeah, well, the new TikTok dance that all the girls are going is, yeah? What do you think that's going to do, yeah? Because, hey, we don't have to, in a way, it's kind of good. We don't have to pay, porn actresses anymore. We just put it in the algorithm. We'll tell it what to do, and whoop, and now we'll have, they will look just the same like an actress or an actor. We don't have to pay them. We bought the algorithm once. That's it, done. And the porn will become pervasive everywhere. And not just that, but it'll become even more perverse, because they'll be able to say, oh, well, we're not harming anybody. Look, it's an algorithm. So, this guy like being shown like tearing the faces of kids and raping them to death. And, well, it's just,
They're not real kids. Yeah, they're just AI generated.
It's
So
just,
you're not really
it's
hurting anyone.
there's no harm done,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, it's just brainwashing people into stupidity,
Plus, it will
degeneracy.
hook into the addiction more by being able to kind of custom
Yeah,
create the models and stuff for the individual user, right?
exactly.
So it'll be able to target people's tastes more kind of
E- e-
intimately.
In
Mm.
essence, to give you the too long didn't listen version,
Mm.
about 30 years ago, when I played Doom for 3 days straight on normal mode and finished it, after that, I think that was the last time I seriously played a video game. Like, I was about in my 20s, and I was like, "Okay, I'm done. I've now finished Doom on normal mode. That's it. I don't need to do anything else." And I'm kind of done with computer games, pretty much. But back then, because of that experience, I used to tell people, I'm like, I've always been sort of felt I was always surrounded by an island. I was an island of somewhat intelligence in a sea of stupidity. So I said, man, there's so many dumb people around. They should just and the VR sets were just starting to be talked about. Like, you know what? They should just give people free internet, hook them up to VR sets and IVs, and just put them in condo colleges, just like these like coffin buildings, shove them all in there, fit them up. And, normal people like us could just walk around into nature, just let it like take over again. I, I think some of those elite guys are probably listening to me. Thought that's a really good idea, and I think that's where we're heading. Because think about it, they're trying to feed you poison. They're trying to medicate you with poison on every level, stupidifying you, isolating you, and making your real life be online. About 2 or 3 streams ago, I did a little. You probably saw it. I did a role-playing game online with like two other guys. It was supposed to be three, but one couldn't get on. And we played the role-playing game, pen and paper role-playing game, as if we were in each other's presence. We actually weren't. It was still a proxy because, they were in different countries and whatever. But the thing is, the idea of getting 4 or 5 guys together to play a game face to face is just people your age just look at that and go like, oh, that sounds like a lot of trouble. Like, why? It's more difficult, and I'd have to drive there, and oh, what? Then we have to have like popcorn. Maybe we have to get a pizza. Oh man, it's too much work. I'm just gonna play World of Warcraft by myself online, and I can talk to my friends online. And you don't realize what that does to you because you haven't lived through it. You don't know. You have to go to a dinosaur like me that tells you, before the asteroids, sonny boy, you know, we didn't even have phones. And you said like, okay, granddad. Um,
So I'm personally I think because of my age, in a weirdly, I'm in a middle position, because I remember enough of my childhood, enough of the before times to not really have all of this just being so ubiquitous, right? It was still the early days of video games for me were still PlayStations, but not hooked up to the internet,
yeah.
that kind of thing. So I've got enough of a sense of what you mean to appreciate it. What I do see though is the younger people, young people in my family, for example, who are completely ensconced in the digital world. It really is becoming alien to them in
So
many
anyway,
ways.
anyway, sorry, I always ramble, as you know, so you've got to keep me in check. But so point number
As you can.
one is to make us absolutely stupid and retarded and addicted to more internet nonsense and just put a gray ooze on all of our brains, right? The average
Mhm.
person that goes on the internet now, we know, has proven with absolute reality that, the atheist idea that a million monkeys on typewriters would write Shakespeare, well, we now know that that's not the case because we've had 1 trillion monkeys on it for like 2,000 years, and no one's written Shakespeare on the internet. No. So,
What will happen instead is a million people will get the AI to write Shakespeare for them and still not understand what it said.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then it'll be dumbed down further. So, and there's not going to be a group of people other than the ones that are already up there. By the
Yeah.
way, I've written a book called Nazi Moon, just some, you know, other than the people that are already out of it, there's not going to be anybody that sits down and goes, you know what, guys, anti-gravity is a thing. Let's build some machines and figure out how to do this and check out the rest of the solar system. Because the average guy will be like, oh, big machine, oh, can move rock, boom. it's like giving atom bombs the size of grapefruits to everybody. Here you go. Here's an atom bomb. Here you go. Oh, your kids can have one. So they're trying to keep us as retarded and dumb as we possibly can be. And this is a concept, again, I came up with 30 years ago. So that's point number 2, keep us dumb. Point number 3 is, point number 1 is keep us dumb. Point number 2 is get us addicted. Point number 3, the next step up is the Neuralink and, robot dogs telling you what to do and what time you can get out of your house and so on. And they're already potentially doing, there was technology back in the 90s that with microwaves and so on could affect your actions. They've done this. This was doable in the 90s. Now they've nanobotted everything, and we know what we mean by that. And they keep spraying us with stuff from all over the sky. How do you know? Apparently, some of these nanobots can self-replicate and are EM magnet. They are like little antennas, so you can use them to like change the brain waves of people on a mass scale, and possibly even indirectly affect them. Certainly, somebody with a Neuralink, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to control him Syndicate style. Syndicate is an old game which you probably don't know about, but again, I put that on the blog. So those are the things that AI is doing, and at the same time, it's destroying the ability of people that do still maybe have an imagination and ingenuity that would be human, because those guys are going to be out of work. Writers, painters, you're not going to spend 3 days to do a painting when an AI can generate one that's, for the moment, for you and me, not quite as good, but again, give it 6 months and it'll be like beep, push button, done. So
it's not only that; it's the fact that it can only, maybe if it's only ever 95% as good or 90% as good. The fact is, you get it in 10 seconds, not in 10
yeah,
days.
yeah.
And that's everything in the world of production and that kind of thing.
In a way, I would suggest people read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the actual original book on which Blade Runner is based. But they're very different. They are very different. The book is very different. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is still better than Blade Runner. I like Blade Runner because of the way it was filmed. It was brilliant optics, but read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because that's kind of pretty much where we're heading. So
I don't disagree with you about any of it. So I think my take is kind of like, all things being equal, if we could wave the wand, it's probably a better thing if AI didn't exist,
yeah,
and that it wasn't the kind of behemoth that it is. I mean, I'm not comfortable about that fact, really. But my attitude, which I don't think you necessarily disagree with, is that if the behemoth already exists
yeah,
and there are useful ways to ride it,
yeah,
then we should possibly consider that. Now, that was one of the things I was thinking about. This topic you mentioned about, the kind of strategy, that separation between the stratospheres of society. Like the people who kind of know how to use it are going to get everything. The people who are going to be left underneath are going to be left underneath.
yeah,
It occurred to me that the one of the biggest differentiating factors in that is not just in terms of material resources and actually owning the servers and stuff like that. It occurred to me that you actually, ironically, you need the two things that it will destroy in order to use it correctly, which are reason and imagination.
yeah,
Yeah. So there will be two types of people, I think, in the wake of this: those who can reason and those who can use their imagination. And they will either be able to do one of two things. They will be able to keep themselves separate and distinct from AI, or they will be able to use AI effectively. Yeah. And there'll be everyone else who, ironically, not only will they be crushed under its feet because they'll be so irrelevant compared to everything else it can do,
yeah.
but they won't even be able to speak to it properly.
No, yeah,
I notice as a language teacher, for example, and I experiment with AI for language purposes, and I also use it to create images quite a lot. Anyone who's seen my videos, a lot of those images are AI generated, and it's fine, because they're actually decent.
yeah,
But what I've noticed is that even that is itself an exercise in reasoning, imagination, and language. I have to name what I want specifically. I have to be able to envision it in my mind. I have to be able to describe it correctly with the right vocabulary.
Yes.
You know, and all of those things are the kind of bottleneck for actually utilizing these things
I,
effectively. You
I
know,
don't mean to interrupt you, just a little
sure.
insert. And as you know, there have been a lot of studies on intelligence that show you that there are a pretty large number of people who cannot imagine and conceptualize something
Yeah,
like what you've just said. So that already, they're gone. Yeah, carry on, sorry.
indeed. So that's the tragedy of it, and I see that. And you know, the majority of society will be kind of they'll be drowned in the use. Basically, is kind of what we're saying. But you know, for other people, there are ways I think in which it can actually be utilized in very, very interesting and useful ways. I mean, thank you, Sam. And you just mentioned that he appreciates the fact I'm publishing more videos. Sorry, go
Just
on.
let me just quickly catch up with the chat, and then what I'd like to
Sure,
do
yeah,
is
right, let's do that, and then I've got a few.
yeah, you tell us the uses you see for it, because I think that's good, and then maybe I'll reply to that, and then what I'd like to do is a counterpoint of, you know, I don't know if you saw, there was a little series that was based on 1984, you know, the Brave New World.
Oh yeah,
And there's the guys that live out in the sticks, and they just still have like old guns and stuff. And they're like, no, we're not
yeah,
going
yeah.
to. That's me. I'll give you that, what I think that can go. Let me just quickly catch up with the thing. Tides of Truth. Hello, sir. He says, greetings, Woolly Ram. Also worth remembering, stealing a goat or chicken back in the day would consign a family to hunger or deprive them of wool for winter clothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tides of Truth. In England, a man was arrested for defending himself from a vicious physical attack with an umbrella. Yeah, it's just.
It's
Hello,
nuts. Our country is
Elia.
nuts.
Elia says, good evening. Blue Ken says, I look forward to advanced algorithm porn. Yeah. Okay. And here we have a perfect example of what we're discussing.
Yeah, maybe read a Caveman Theory, mate, or go outside.
Yeah. Get some grass underfoot, I think is what they're saying nowadays. Wooly Ram says, yeah. Wizards of the Coast is in the process of abandoning pen and paper, trying to move D&D into online only with AI GM, AI Game Master. Oh, good God. Sam Werab, hail fellows, well met. Hi, Wooly. Really appreciate that you're publishing more videos on your channel, Tony. Yeah. By the way, guys, I forgot to do it, Tony. If you want to put your channel's link in the chat, just go ahead, feel free. Tony
Oh,
does.
damn it. Let's see if I can do that. I don't think this actually allows me to comment. But what I could do, I'll send you my channel link, and then maybe you can just post it yourself.
Yeah, if you ping it on
I never
Telegram.
have the option to actually comment when I'm in these.
Okay. Just ping it on Telegram, and I'll put it in there.
Sure.
Yeah, so Tony's channel is got some very, very, very excellent stuff on Catholic apologetics, which is really good, really, really good.
Savicantism is my focus. Yeah.
Yeah, proper Catholic, of course. When we say Catholic, we mean actually Catholic, not
There's
Novus.
only one thing that Catholic really means.
Yeah, not Novus Orco, vicar of pedophiles on earth and all that, blah, blah, blah. Let me just, my computer's a bit slow. I'm trying to just
My
copy
blog URL, yeah, I'm actually getting an interesting, surprising amount of interest in some of the things I've written, so I'll do that. In fact, what I'll do, please, is this is actually just a link to my website because it's got a whole bunch of stuff on there. It's basically a hub to all of my creative works, and yeah, to my website tonyvclow.com. That's a hub to basically everything that I do.
Okay, so maybe let me just type that, because my
No.
my NSA handler is pretty harsh, so he's not letting me copy and paste. It's just what he does. So it's Tony
VC Low, sorry, so tonyvclow.com. Low is spelled Lowe.
Yeah, I know how to spell your name, dude. Okay, there we go.
Go, perfect.
Yeah.
So, you can navigate the links in there. You'll see the various different things that I do, including my YouTube channel. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hear your ideas on. Sorry. Just maybe we frame it in a bigger. My contention, which is a little bit controversial for some people, is that because we live on a fallen world, quite often the methodologies of our great great grandfathers of doing the right proper Catholic thing are sometimes not as effective as using the enemy's own tools against him, which understandably and not necessarily wrongly, a lot of Catholics sometimes have an issue with that. But I personally think I'm in the fight, and the risk is in doing that you get tempted or you get corrupted into doing into becoming corrupted by using the tools of the enemy, which is
Yeah.
intent to begin with. But if you're very well aware and very clear on what you're doing and why and how, there are essentially ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, without going into a full theological discussion about it, the basic principle is that it requires a great deal of moral discernment
Yeah,
throughout. So yeah, I mean, I was just going to comment, for example, I don't like the fact that every time I open ChatGPT, I can see 666, right? You see
yeah,
666. It's just like
yeah,
kills the mood. But here we
yeah,
are. I
yeah,
mean, even as we're on YouTube now, right? We're still speaking from inside the dragon.
yeah, exactly.
In a
Yeah,
certain sense. It just is what it is. Um, yeah, all right. So I'll run through a few ideas and be patient with me because there's actually quite a few that I've come across now in the
yeah,
last
yeah,
few weeks. Some of them
sure.
are quite diverse. I
Yeah.
mean, Sam mentioned videos on my channels recently, and thank you. They seem to be popular. I've been making shorts for the first time, and as I explained to you, hopefully this doesn't ruin the magic for anyone, but I am using AI to help me with that. You know, there is a way that you can utilize it to kind of. I've got different stuff that allows me to basically create multiple at the same time instead of just doing every single one handpicked individually. I do still design them and everything and monitor them and everything else, but that's saving me so much productivity time that it would actually have been impossible for me to do it otherwise,
Hmm.
which is a big principle there. It's like the difference between if I wanted just to leave AI out of it, I wouldn't have done it at all, full stop, because I
Yeah.
just wouldn't have been able to. So it's better for it to exist at least a little bit.
One quick
Uh,
question then. We're still trying to get 5 more. Um, what do you call it, members. So if you go, you can only do it on the desktop. Apparently, you can't do it on your mobile. But if
all
you go
right.
on my channel and you go membership, we need just 5 more to get to the 10. And maybe one of the first members only thing that we could do would maybe be a stream where you maybe teach us a few of these techniques to the people that are interested, if that's what they're,
Yeah,
might be
I'd be
useful.
happy to do that for
Yeah.
sure. All right, so that's the first one. I've got, you can use it for making videos. One thing I've seen as a possibility too, though I haven't tested this fully myself, I will do soon. You can actually create entire videos, like full feature videos, using this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where you will see from the work I do on my channel, those videos sometimes take me weeks or months to create. But there are options there for creating videos of, a lower quality, but you can do it, within a day instead of a week. But anyway,
Hmm.
some other kind of more interesting stuff that's a little less obvious. Um, as I showed you the other day, I used ChatGPT and I said, look, just
Yeah.
explain cellular capitalism to me as if I'm a child, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, why not write it as if it's a story being told to children? And it did. It actually created an imagination because the first iteration of that story was wrong. I could tell from
Yeah.
the philosophy and the way it framed the canon law. I was like,
Yeah.
no, that's too easy to dig through. So I just basically gave it an extra prompt and said, look, do that again, but be more careful with the logic kind of thing. And it
Yeah.
did. And the second time, it was actually quite good.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was. Yeah.
so, again, it's that kind of thing where, you and I could sit down and write something like that, but it would take time and reflection and everything. But it created it within like 10 seconds,
Yeah.
you know. Now, one of the more interesting ones that we've looked at recently is actually using it for research because Google is the main thing we're familiar with getting information and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
This is taking it to a whole new level completely. Now, as some of you might be aware, I actually do weekly apologetics seminars, right? And one of the ways we've used it in our seminars, for example, is someone will bring up some kind of philosophical theory that I just don't have all the facts on hand for it, right? So they said, for example, what exactly are all the key principles of nominalism again? And I haven't studied nominalism for a while, so I was
Yeah.
like, I can't remember. I can't be bothered to look all the way
I
through.
don't even know what that is. So,
Well, yeah, it's basically the idea that there are no actual like abstract categories beyond individual facts. Okay,
what?
it doesn't work. It's a basically
Sounds like nonsense.
anti-capitalist position.
Yeah.
It is nonsense ultimately, but it's sophistic nonsense, which is why it came up, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted, just to get a quick kind of key point summary. What is nominalism? Threw that into
Mm,
ChatGPT, came up all right away, and it gave us a good jumping off point for this.
yeah.
Now, what I've noticed with these machines in this context, for example, is you can't say, you know, is God real? Because it
Yeah.
will be like, well, my pink-haired, programmer said that I need to be
Yeah.
nice to everyone, and that might offend someone, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But you can say, for example, what are the major Christian or Catholic arguments for the existence of God? It will
Yeah.
give you that without question, right?
Yeah.
Now, more specifically, this is where we can use it for sedevacantism. I asked it, for example, because I know that we're aware of the fact that divine law in Catholic theology, in Catholic teaching, is primary
Oh, of
over
course.
ecclesiastical law, right?
Yeah.
And for
Of course.
reasons we both understand, it's becoming an important issue
Yeah.
at the moment. And I know that principle, and I know that I've come across the information from it in certain times that I've read. But again, I just didn't have the information in front of me at the time.
Mm,
So I went into ChatGPT and said, explain the principle of divine law versus ecclesiastical law. It said that divine law was primary. Gave the whole summary of the
mm,
idea. And this is the important part. I said, okay, but now give me magisterial documents that prove that, with quotes from,
mm,
catechisms or councils or popes, and only use sources before the year 1958.
mm.
Yeah. And it straight away, right? I had like quotes from Trent. I had the actual like session and the reference and everything for all of that. So when it came to it, the question of actually finding the information we need, even for
Mhm.
kind of detailed and complex topics, it's very good for that. Very good.
I would just put one little point of caution is, and I've learned this from reading plenty of books, because people like Graham Hancock will give you like notes, and then they'll have like 16 pages of like tiny notes, and there in the main text they'll say, oh, this is a plus b equals x and blah blah blah, and they've got like 14 notes relating to a plus b equals x, and then you go and check those 14 notes and you go and read the documents they actually refer to. Nine, half the time they prove the exact opposite of what the fuck they're
Yeah, yeah,
saying.
I'm aware. I agree with that. This is
So
actually why I've changed my mind about the thing recently, because I tried something similar with it earlier on this year, and in fact, that's a different usage I'll talk about in a second, which was also very interesting. But it gave me certain facts and figures and data and stuff, and I knew enough about the subject to just say, well, that's just fucking wrong. Like, I just
yeah,
know that's wrong.
yeah,
That argument doesn't work. It gave me a link. I checked the link. I was like, that doesn't go anywhere. That doesn't prove anything. But I did that recently, and I was very cautious at first. So, it gave me some quotes from the Council of Trent, for example. And I thought, okay, well, I've got a copy of the Council of Trent or whatever. I'll look through mine. And I didn't
yeah,
find the quotes there. And I thought, oh, that's a red flag. Hang on a minute.
yeah.
What's going on here? And I started to bring it up on it, right? So, well, these quotes, and I can't verify these. Where are these from? As it turns out, though, it was getting all the quotes from like an edition or a translation of the Council of Trent that was published in like 1876 or
Hmm.
something, right? And it gave me the exact authorship, the date, and everything. So I thought, okay, well, let's work with this. I grabbed that, and I had to dig through the internet, and I found basically like a printed PDF copy of that
Yeah,
version of the Council of Trent.
yeah,
It's the kind of PDF copy where the writing was so kind of blurred that the machine couldn't actually, you couldn't
yeah,
just do like a word search or anything.
yeah. On the archive, yeah,
Yeah, it was on that exactly.
yeah.
So I eventually found the passage that it referenced, it, and no, to its credit, the wording was exactly the same. You
Okay,
know, so that's when I started to think, okay, this is a bit different now.
yeah.
Um, on a side note, again, another thing I thought it was interesting for is I actually used it to prove a couple of conspiracy theories a while back. And this was before it kind of had its upgrades. Now,
Okay.
here's one, for example, right? I went into ChatGPT and I asked it, give me, I think, 20 examples of conspiracy theories that have been absolutely verified to be true and accepted in the mainstream, right? And it did
Mm.
it. One of which was the MK Ultra program, right?
Oh well, that's not even a conspiracy theory. That's just history.
Well, yeah, but most people, in the norm would kind of refer to it as a conspiracy theory or a proven conspiracy theory.
Oh.
But the point
I'm
is,
so
is that
deep into the conspiracy theories, I didn't even know that. That's just like,
yeah,
World War II happened and MK Ultra happened. Yeah.
but here's the point. Like, even if that sounds ridiculous to people, I mean, the thing that I found interesting about it is I then started to ask for proof of this stuff,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And after just a couple of searches, it actually gave me a direct link to the CIA archive.
Yeah.
And within about 5 minutes, I actually had a PDF document of a signed kind of legislation from inside the CIA saying this is MK Ultra, this is what we did, signed by them,
Yeah.
completely verifying that it was true.
Yeah.
So that's another usage it's got. What were the other things?
Makes me wonder if did it have Majestic 12 in there at all?
What is Majestic 12?
That's ancient conspiracy theory. And I forget the names of the admirals involved and whatever, but it's to do with UFOs, basically.
I'm going to try this again because I know you mentioned there was one, and I tried to research it, but because the AI was fed with data which is a few years old, like it was giving me links, but they were all just going to dead ends of things that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, because they're
But
scrubbing it a lot. Yeah.
they are scrubbing it. However, this is a big upgrade that's only come out in the last month or two. They've now added plugins to ChatGPT. You can actually expand it now and add things to it. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things you can add to it is basically a little bridge between it and the Google server,
Okay.
right? Or access to the internet. So it can actually start to do updated searches on more up to date information. So not with that, but I'm interested to see where that can go.
Yeah, a lot of medical, 2020, 2021, there was a lot of medical papers which I read on topics we're familiar with, which are no longer there. They just,
Yeah.
for example, there's been like 30 years of work that's been done on mRNA um, work for about 30 years, with pretty much always the same results for the animal
Mhm.
testing that they did. Try and find one of those papers now. It's quite interesting, really. So, yeah, what I'm saying, what I think, the danger is that I agree with everything you said, but I think we're in that twilight zone, which you didn't live through, but I did, which was when the internet first came on. It was like the Wild West. It was the wild frontier. There was alt forums where you could discuss anything. People's there were just there was information flowing between people about like everything from anti-gravity machine to
Mm.
crypto zoo stuff, UFOs, machines that like technology that people. It was just shooting across around the globe with ease. And within a few years, it started to get locked down. And now, all of that valid, good, decent information that was available, and yes, there was also a lot of crazy trash too, but you could kind of figure out what was what. Now, it's all just mediocre gray goo. And I think that's pretty much where we are. And so you're one of the people that's able to maybe use it in the right context. But over time, I think it's just going to get more and more and
Yeah,
more wokeified and dumbed down.
I
And
agree. Which is why another thing that I've been thinking out a lot with this is again one of my big projects is this the trivium stuff, and in particular I do that now for children and homeschooling
yeah,
families. And
yeah,
I've been thinking about I'm always thinking about what the next generation is going to have to deal with from an intellectual point of view. And that's why, I mean, one of the things this is proving to me for sure is that the idea that we need to teach our kids to use their imaginations and reason correctly is just, it's not even a question anymore, right?
no,
It's an absolute necessity. It's an
absolutely,
absolute
yes.
necessity. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe if we're actually in agreement at that point, I thought another layer to this conversation that's worth maybe kind of just giving a voice to is this idea of like, well, what is it about the human mind that really does distinguish us from the machines? And I know your own understanding of the mind and the brain in particular is better than much deeper than mine. So, what are your thoughts on that? If you were going to say there are some key features that really distinguish the mechanical mind from the human mind, what would
Well,
those be?
you know, the one sentence too long did not listen answer is we have a connection with the divine. So
Okay.
we are, to get it to a more scientific, almost not quite atheistic level. There's a book written quite a long time ago called The Holographic Universe, I think, or possibly it's called The Holographic Mind. Forget the man's
Hmm.
name. It's a book that was written about 30, maybe more, maybe 40 years ago. The Holographic Universe, I think it was called, and I think the guy's name was Michael something or other.
The Holographic Universe by Michael
There you go.
Talbot.
There you go. Hey, my brain's still working. They ain't got me yet with their, lasers, space lasers.
My internet's working, so
Yeah. So yeah, and it's a very interesting book. It's definitely worth reading. There are some very interesting concepts in there, including the story of a man who got this really vicious form of cancer that was producing like lumps all over his body, like the size of oranges. And then he got given this drug, this new drug that was supposedly a miracle drug, but in reality, that drug didn't work at all. And they gave him an injection of this stuff, and within 24 hours, all his fucking cancer was gone. But then the doctor figured out, oh shit, this stuff doesn't actually do anything. And he told the guy, and he said, oh, by the way, and within 48 hours, he had them all back and he died. It was just like, wait, what? So, the power of the mind in that context is amazing. But not to have a long conversation on it, but essentially what the concept of how the human mind works is that it looks like the human mind is a hologram of the universe. In other words, and I do think that this is a valid thing. If you know how a hologram works, if you've got let's just say that you've got a slide that's a hologram and it's made on glass or something, right? You can see the whole 3D thing. But now, if that drops on the floor and it breaks, any one of those pieces will still have the full hologram in it.
Hmm.
So
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
our minds are like tiny fragments of the totality of the knowledge of the universe. There are certain things, I don't think this is in the book, this is my own thought on it, but like, for example, like idiot savants, guys that, like Rain Man type people, right? They can do the square root of a 14-digit number in their head, and it's just like, they just spit it out. I don't think that that's possible unless there is an absolute link to the underlying fundamental non-physical reality that sustains creation. Because
Which is logos.
yeah, well, how would this guy's brain be able to calculate that function? It's
Hmm.
clearly not happening consciously. It's happening too quickly for it to be a calculation in his head. It's something that's happening as an instinct almost, which means it must be a fundamental underlying principle of reality, which is an abstract, right? Because maths is an abstract. You're not like taking this 14-digit number and like figuring out what the square root of it is or whatever. It's just like bang, which means it's an underlying property of reality, which also means that the underlying property of reality is ultimately non-physical. It's spiritual, or call it what you like, but it's
I think
what's
even Aristotle and Aquinas would refer to things that exist in the so-called intellectual world like that as spiritual. Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah.
are absolutely.
In the same way as these
So
things we were talking
to
about.
answer your
Yeah.
question, that's the difference. The human mind is absolutely linked in, is connected to part of. We don't really have the language to discuss this in a lot of detail, but essentially we've got a thread, if you like, or we are part of the bigger ocean that is the intelligence behind creation on some level. Whether you see that
Yeah,
as,
that fits perfectly. Because I know you at least read the draft for my book, Life and
yeah,
Truth. I don't know if you read the full release, but there was a part in there where I think I absolutely proved that there's an innate connection between our ability to reason and logos, which is basically the overarching or inherent order of truth in the universe. That's true for logical reasons and ontological reasons too. But the way I've always thought about it is that, it's almost like logos is a kind of radio signal, right? And the human mind is
mm,
simply a receiver for
yeah,
that signal. So
you
the
could put
mind
it
is
that
not
way.
the signal is not reducible to the mind, but the mind can tap into it and kind of see what the big whole kind of truth signal is
Yeah,
actually about and interact with it, which is why we're made in the image of God, right? Because animals can't access that. Now,
yeah,
the important part now is that we actually have that bridge to actual truth, right? That's truth with a capital T is
yeah,
all wrapped up in the logos. What we're kind of unwrapping with this then is the fact that the machines don't have a bridge to that.
no,
The only sense in which they have a bridge to that is through the faulty intermediary, which is humans, ironically,
exactly.
right? So they have that limited bridge,
And
which is
that's very, very important point, because it takes us back to Tolkien. Evil
mm-hmm.
cannot create, it can only corrupt. It can make a bad copy which is corrupted and will only go into further corruption. Because given, if you accept the Catholic premise that all humans are flawed, and if your only intermediary between reality and whatever you're creating is humans, over time, that can only lead one place. Yeah, kind of lower down, and it's a bit warmer, according to what we know. You can only go that way. You cannot go the other way. And you can say, but AI saved my life because yeah. On your blip to down, you got little bumps, and maybe you got a little peak just for you that one time. And there are instances of this. For example, by reading Dan Simmons, I read, because of Dan Simmons' science fiction, I picked up and I started reading Pierre Teilhard de Chardin's stuff, and because of how far I was from Christianity, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin got me closer to certain aspects of Christianity, which is ironic, because Pierre Teilhard de
Yeah,
Chardin was an absolute arch heretic who
yeah, yeah,
was essentially trying to destroy the church with
yeah.
his thesis. But I was so far out into left field that I was like, hey, this guy's got some good points, man. And it's like I was out there and I come here. It's funny, but again, God works in mysterious ways, right? So
Absolutely.
there are ways where, yes, like you're saying, if you can use the AI to jujitsu the evil that it does into some positive, absolutely. And generally speaking, does God allow that? Not only does He allow that, He seems to enjoy doing it that way. He seems to think, I'm going to take the most screwed up, broken tool. Oh, there you go. There's little Giuseppe. Yeah, let's make him Catholic. It's just like, what the fuck?
That is the one awesome. It's the distinctly divine power, isn't it?
Yeah,
To not only take something good and make it good, but to make something evil and make it good.
yeah,
And God is I think that's the true mark of His work. Actually,
yes, it
no
is.
other being can even try that, for as far as I can see.
Now, there's a very interesting point that I sort of wonder a little bit about, which is, how far does God allow us to fall before, and how we clearly, if you read the Bible, it appears that we clearly have some say in it.
Yeah,
By our actions and how we comport ourselves, and how faithful we are to the truth and justice, God, good, love, and so on. It seems to bring us, uh, you know, affect things for us personally. Not maybe necessarily the way you'd like, like, for example, Athanasius got eaten by lions. But by being eaten by lions, he certainly affected things in a positive way, which was absolutely unexpected by the Romans, right? Because, again, the saint whose name I took, Saint Adrianus, he was the captain of the guard that were torturing to death the Catholics because they're like, hey, well, we got to get these guys to change their mind, and they're like, nah, you're going to torture us to death, but we're not gonna change our mind. And he was so impressed that there and then he converted. There and then he just said, "No, I'm on these guys' side. I can't, keep doing this." And again, he got killed, tortured to death and burnt at the stake, so they couldn't even find. His wife stole one of his hands. That was all that was left of him. But again, because of his actions, it affected. That's how Catholicism spread to begin with, right, through the martyrs. And then later it was defended by the fighters, the warriors, the knights, whatever. So it looks like we can fall as far as we want to fall, really. And the zeitgeist around us obviously affects us. So, we're Catholic now, but we've done whatever degenerate things were considered normal before, and maybe we're still doing some of them or whatever. It's like it's a gradual. Okay, we've got to get out of this hole that we realize we were in to like sort of improve ourselves and the people around us. And it's very interesting how I think AI, I think ultimately, to put all the things I said before into one package, ultimately the whole point of AI, like the whole point of Protestantism, the whole point of the Novus Ordo, is to corrupt us, human beings in general, Catholic Church specifically, what's left of it, the remnant of it that's left, in such a global, overarching, pervasive way that it becomes a myth. Like you're gonna, if we allow this to continue, 50, 100 years down the line, our children's children will be going like, oh yeah, they used to, there's these legends about these guys that were called Catholics, and yeah, there's also these legends about dragons that used to fly around and like breathe fire, and yeah, and then the Catholics and the dragons lived in the same time, back in 7,000 years ago when they say the Earth was created, but we know it's like whatever, yesterday, because it's always year zero.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and so that's ultimately my point with AI, which now takes us to maybe it's a time to introduce what I think is a way to counter or protect yourself from the stuff.
Sure. Do you want to check the chat first?
Yeah, I don't think there's been much going on. So, oh, okay. Sam Wereb, who's my PR agent basically now, asked me how I got my badass channel avatar. Ironic Keyboard joined as a member. Thank you very much. We now only need 4 more to have members only little streams, because I want at least 10 of you to be in there before we do little members only streams, which will be very much controlled by you guys and what you want to do in there. So, Wooly Ram says nominalism is fancy speak for word magic. Change the name, change the thing. Yeah, but nonsense. Tides of Truth says, remember Usenet? Absolutely do. Usenet is still in existence. I wonder if it gets scrubbed and controlled, or if it still freed you to being sort of a relic. Yeah, it's not the same as it was in my small forays into it. Ironic Keyboard says, AI will be turned into an onboard gatekeeper on your device, having access to your screen, your sensors, cameras, mix, and data. What do you mean will be? It's been doing
Yeah,
It's been doing that
yeah,
since the 90s. Every phone call you
yeah.
ever made since the internet came online has been recorded. Every single email, every single phone call. It was called Echelon, Carnivore. They literally had programs that did this. I remember back in the day, there was people that on their email signature, they had a long email signature that had all the 3-letter agencies in it, that had like all the conspiracy theory like keywords in it, and it goes, yeah, if we're all doing this, we're all going to get flagged. And then it's kind of useless for them. But now with
Right.
AI, they can
Yeah,
search through that data even more carefully so that they can flag the people that are really a problem.
yeah. I had a funny one like earlier on this week when I was, there was a piece of software I was working with, like you can use voice activation to make it work. And ever since I've been aware of that, I was like, oh, I don't want to give the internet my voice. What a
Yeah.
scary idea that would be. Then I realized I've got like 100 hours of me talking on YouTube, and I thought,
Yes.
it's already got my voice. Like, what am I even thinking about?
Yeah, you know,
You know?
if you've ever for any reason ever done a DNA test anywhere, or if your DNA was collected anywhere, but any point at by any hospital for whatever reason, or your blood, they got it. So you know,
Look, here's one other crazy thought I had, just because it was there, and it was basically this idea of like, in a sense, I wonder if this whole situation encourages us to bring, the real meaning of life and important things into relief. Because if you do imagine this crazy shadow world that we're imagining, AI gets so far down the line that it not only is pervasive in everything, but it steals everyone's identities, right? You can't tell whether
yeah.
anyone's real or it's just a shadow or whatever. But here's the thing, though, right? I mean, I was thinking the nature of the work that we do, for example, of like trying to at least express the truth in the way to the extent that we know how. Um, our identities don't ultimately matter, do they?
Well, it matters if, like that lady found out the FBI is uploading child porn to your computer just to get you out of circulation.
Well, yeah, and I know that bit in terms of like what it can actually do to your individual life and that kind of thing. But I suppose what I was trying to say is that the primary thing is the ideas and whether they're in existence and in circulation or not, and whether that's being done by one person or another, or it's being done by some AI ghost or whatever. It's still about the truth being in existence, right?
Yeah, but as
Uh,
you said, we've now reached the point. We're there. We're basically there. Okay. I mean,
yeah,
you and I don't have that technology at our fingertips yet, but it's been there for a while. Trust me, it is there because when
yeah,
I,
absolutely.
when I wrote this book here, the second Overlords of Mars, this image, right, was
Hmm.
done by a guy who's now in Hollywood and does special effects for all the films that you've seen in the last 15 years. His team has been involved in, and he did that cover for me in like 20 minutes. Um, and this was published 10 years ago, and on his computer, because I was in his studio when he was doing this, he just with like one click he altered the appearance. They had like databases. What he started from a picture of a naked woman with that, and then like put the skin of the suit on it, and like he did this in like 5 minutes, and it was like one click. Now the quality of the image was such that if you zoomed in to the woman's like arm or something, you could literally see the hair individually on her skin. And in
Hmm.
one click, it just like smoothed everything out. And in three more clicks, he'd taken like the spacesuit kind of that I wanted it to look like, and he just blanked it on her. It was like done in seconds. And I was like, fuck, how powerful is your computer? Because like that image would have taken me like hours to like change. And he goes, oh, this is nothing. They're doing this live now on camera. And I was like, what? Because yeah, you think when you're watching TV, you're seeing people how they really look? No. It's happening as it's being filmed live. These filters to like make people look better or whatever, they're happening as you're watching it on TV. And that was 10 years
Hmm.
ago. So with absolute certainty, they can, have video of you doing whatever, of me doing whatever. So there is no more truth. You cannot discern what truth is. The only way that you can discern what truth is with a capital T is A, if first of all you need the absolute ability to do logic and reason, and you absolutely have to understand and know in the depths of your DNA that objective reality is a thing. Because there's a lot of people, including people I know, that do not even believe that objective reality is a thing. They're like, oh, but what if? I said, look, fucking wall is a wall. Smash your head into it. Yo, yeah, no, I know it'll smash my head into it, but how do I know that it will smash everybody else's head into it? It's that like
Yeah,
sophistic level of
yeah,
philosophy.
yeah.
And it's not even their fault. They've been so brainwashed into thinking everything is possible and nothing is true and everything is, you know, everything is blue and gray and pink all at the same time, and you don't know if it's up or down. So they're destroying, and they've destroyed the ability of people to understand that objective reality is a thing, and therefore you can find out the truth. So they're not even aware anymore that the truth is even discoverable. So that's point number one. And point number 2, which is now leads into like, how do I think we should fight AI? It's not an immediate link, and I'm going to try and show the steps in between, and I'm going to ask you your help to tell me if I've missed a step, because I'm prone to doing that.
Just before you do that, in a sentence, what's the conclusion you're going to get to?
The conclusion that I'm going to get to is that you have to be able to live without fiat money.
Okay, cool. So, okay, please explain.
You have to create communities that are going to be able to exist outside of the monetary system that we are all under currently, and that has been designed to enslave every single one of us. So essentially, not to put too fine a point on it, that means creating communities that are self-sufficient in terms of food, water, and defense. And while it's happening now, we can concentrate on food and water, but we should be absolutely considering defense down the line, because they're not going to leave you alone. It's absolutely a fact that they will not leave you alone. They've not left us alone. They're not leaving us alone. You know, people like me, we just want to just leave me the fuck alone. Let me do my own thing, and I'm not going to bother you. You want to do whatever. You want to live in a country or a planet or an area, a community where you guys believe whatever you want. That's fine. Just leave me the fuck alone and leave me out of it. But that's not allowed. They're forcing it upon you. In England now, they've passed this rule where if your child misses more than like 5 days of school or something, and within a 10-week period, you get a fine. And if it happens twice, you get a bigger fine. And if it happens the third time, you get a huge fine and a criminal record. Wait a fucking minute. So you're telling me if my kid misses school 5 days or whatever, when perhaps there's some agenda that you're trying to shove into their fucking head that I don't agree with and that is not real and is not based on the truth, I can't keep my kid out of it, because otherwise I end up with a criminal record. And this is step 1. They've just put this in now. This is step 1. What's step 3 going to be like? We're going to come and arrest you and put the Neuralink directly into your brain so that you can't fucking avoid it, just down the line. So you have to become self-sufficient at a very clear, obvious physical level of producing your own food and all that. And you're going to have to be able to defend yourself, because even if you do that within a country or wherever you are, they're going to say, well, but we've got laws, we've got rules. You can't plant your own potatoes because you don't have the license for potato planting, and you're not using the GMO seeds that we sell you that have got the built-in nanotech that's healthy for you. It's really good for you. You should just inject it directly in the neck, in fact. But if you don't inject it in the neck, it's okay. We'll put it in the potatoes that you're only allowed to grow that we tell you, That's where it's going. So the only way that you're going to be able to resist that, because they're going to apply force to you to make you do that, the only way to resist and defend yourself against that is eventually going to be force. So you have to create these communities that have to be large enough, self-sufficient enough, powerful enough at every level, academically, physically, politically. So you should try and get into go and pick a tiny village and become the mayor of that village. Go and pick a tiny village and make sure that your like-minded people create this kind of community where it's like, no, objective reality is a thing, 2 + 2 is 4, and whatever, the sun rises in the east. That's it. That's all it boils down to. It's not easy, because they will absolutely control you with the tools that they've created over the last few centuries, and especially in the last 100 years or so, to control everybody, which ultimately is money, right? And they're now going to digital money, and, you didn't do X, Y, and Z. You didn't go for your monthly rectal exam with your neighborly friendly, probe. You can't buy meat anymore then. And if you missed your next rectal probe exam, you won't be able to, buy water.
Cut your bug rations as well.
Yeah, yeah, bug rations, exactly. So that ultimately that's where it's going. And in order to do that, you have to start getting used to the fact that you don't need a fucking phone. You don't need the internet. You need land, and you need to be able to defend it, and you need to be able to cultivate it, and you need to, and it's gonna go all the way down to like, oh, you won't be able to buy diesel for your tractor anymore, so you have to be able to build a refinery that can do the tractor stuff for yourself. You have to build a parallel society. And people are watching this thinking, this guy's fucking crazy, that can't happen, he's like an over, arching prepper, he's crazy. Not crazy. And there's precursors to this. Saint Benedictine, in about the year 400 or so, the world at the time was an absolute shit show. Things had collapsed. The Roman Empire basically fallen through. It was just bandits everywhere, rape, pillage, and there was no sense of morality or anything. And this guy buggered off to the hills, started a monastery, instituted some laws, and says only guys that stick to these rules can actually be part of this. And within a few generations, you had monasteries that were like producing and spreading light, good truths, and become wealthy because they were producing some, they were like a bunch of celibate men. All they did is work and pray all day and all night. So pretty quickly, they had an excess of stuff.
That was another kind of topic for this that I thought was hopeful. Like as much as the Goliath is so much bigger than whatever we're working with, the quality of truth driven and truth related people is just so much higher than the filth, right?
It is.
And the output is so much better, and the fortitude and everything is so much higher. That it's just great. I mean, I was even thinking about that in terms of just go back to the last conversation a little bit. Just the idea that one of the things that AI actually does for this small window where it's actually maybe workable is that it means that the productive output of the small group of people who can use it is higher now. So you might say, yeah, well, it's making the big, horrible, evil companies more productive too. But it's like, yeah, but they don't know how to use their productivity to make anything good or true.
That's a very good point, and which brings me back to like, sorry, I just saw there was another. Elia just became a member. We now need only 3 more, but brings me back to that point, which is like, why not? Let's make the membership of this channel something that you can maybe educate us on how to use this stuff. Because if 10 of us start to use the stuff efficiently and teach another 10, pyramid scheme. That's it.
Right? Yeah. But, one of the things I was genuinely thinking was like, with the amount of information this stuff can produce and easily, you and I are both people trying to spread the message about true Catholicism. And, we've got relatively, simple video making and editing skills and that kind of thing. We're limited because we haven't got much time. But, what if there's 10 people that can do it? Or 100 people that can do it?
Exactly.
Or 1,000?
Exactly.
And, if every person we knew, even in our churches, which are not very big, but if every one of them knew how to produce like 1 video a week explaining why Stupefaction is true.
Oh, yeah. It would absolutely catch fire, yeah. Woolly Ram says, Usenet is mostly a porn honeypot now, and even 4chan has been butt broken. And Ilya says, good evening to all my fellow members. To the rest, hello, I guess. Very. I like how zealot my members are. I really, it's the true spirit of bigots. Well done. Shun the others who are not members. Woolly Ram says, if you want to wrest back a bit of control, look into the Louis Rossmann's Futo apps. I don't know what that is or means, but he is working on a set of apps, smartphone, keyboard, voice activation, all open source and locally stored. Oh, interesting. Elia says, thanks, I'll check that out. This is a very interesting couple of messages here from Tides of Truth. The people of Western North Carolina are discovering right now what happens when you don't resist forcefully the depredation of government. FEMA is confiscating supplies that people are trying to bring in. Yeah, that's amazing. That hurricane that just happened in Florida and South Carolina, I guess, it's like knocked, I don't know, over 1 million people have got no power and stuff. And there's many reports, none of them on the mainstream media, of people going in to help and like their stuff being confiscated, like the FEMA guys telling, we're going to arrest you if you try and help the people that are here. It's shocking. It's really, I'm the government, I've come here to help, and that's why I'm going to shoot you and your dog, kind of thing.
Yeah.
A very interesting comment that he continues. I was raising chickens this summer against the village regulations. It was working until my lesbian neighbors reported me to the police. Interesting, isn't it? And nationalist says, you must eat the goislop tides. That's true. I don't know how long this channel will stay up. That's why I'm looking into
Amazing
Rumble.
Yeah, another little thought that came just popped up was this fact that, again, for now, I mean, one of the things I was looking at with the developments of the AI stuff today was another plugin you can add into ChatGPT is apparently this entire plugin kind of structure called Wolfram or Wolfram Alpha. And basically, it's a specialist science and engineering and mathematics processor.
I heard of
And
it,
it was
yes.
showing how you can use that within ChatGPT to do kind of like really quite sophisticated and complex mathematics and modeling and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, the idea is to move away from any reliance on this stuff, but it occurred to me that, if you were trying to set up a homestead and you wanted to kind of get a brief rundown of, maybe resource quantities or, how much energy would I actually need in order to make this generator run correctly, and how do you do the wattage transformation?
You've just reminded me of something that I did with one of our friends who prefers to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to say his name, but you know him. And we've actually, I need to put it together. He's helping me to buy the parts to build this thing. There's two versions of it. One, I use ChatGPT prompts to get like, how do I build something that just produces energy out of the ether? And we're now trying to put that together. And another one is along the same lines. It looks like it's basically something that will take a small amount of input and ramp it up to produce. I don't know if produce more than what's put in is the right terms, but let's say it uses a very small quantity of energy to produce an output that is usable by, your normal appliances.
Kind of hyper efficient transfer of energy, or
well, it's more like a transformer, I guess, because that's
okay.
what happens. They step stuff up.
Okay.
So, and then I'm thinking, well, what if both of these things actually work, and I combine them? You're getting a little bit of energy, which you then step up. And however many iterations of that you might need to do to power a whole fucking house, that could be interesting. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing now, because my, I had a Kickstarter on the gasifier and that failed. It failed because it's weird that the increase in our technology has made gasifiers less likely to work. And it's very interesting. I don't know if whoever's followed this path, and I still thank the guys that funded it, because it was an experiment and it did fail. And I email everybody saying it failed. The reason it failed is because in the 40s, the engines that we use for generators, cars, and everything they were much more robust and had a bigger tolerance for error than currently. So even though you were running through crappy gases that were like leaving a bit of gunk all over the place.
When you say nanotechnology, precision technology.
Yeah. Now,
right,
engines nowadays, you try and run that same synth gas before you've purified it to a degree that wasn't even possible to purify back then. It's going to gunk up your engine within a half hour. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, after I've come to this conclusion, I did a lot of tests. I mean, I spent months like testing and retesting, and it just wasn't working. But about a couple of weeks after I announced, look, I've done everything I can. This is why it's failed. And there's 2 or 3 different parts. One is the filtering that you need to do is just massive compared to what it was in order for it to use the generator. Even when you filtered it that way, it's still going to gunk up your generator eventually. So not that efficient. And the third point is that the wood that you need to use to burn has to absolutely be very, very dry, which everybody back then did, because everybody was a farmer back then. Everybody had the problem that I had 2 years ago when I didn't dry the wood and I was burning wet wood and it clogged up my pipe, right? The 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 outlet. But every farmer knew this, and every farmer was using wood that was been drying for 2 or 3 years. So there's a number of factors that are all stacked up together to the point where gasifiers are not really viable, unless you're building there are gasifiers that are viable in rural areas. They're worth millions. They're huge machines that burn probably not just wood but other stuff, and they have to
No
process it.
physicist. I remember at the time of when you were running that, I looked at some images of like currently in use gasifiers. They looked really complicated.
They're absolutely giant machines that have to filter and filter and filter. But so that's my point. It's like, well, that failed. So I will eventually want to do another Kickstarter to produce this stuff. But I want to do a test machine for myself first. Just that, like, I want to do a prototype that I know works before I get like people to maybe help invest in it or whatever. So that's the idea, and we're busy doing that right now. So let's just see. Stephen Wolfram, genius guy. Yeah, so anyway, so we've kind of already done a little bit of that. I don't know if it's going to work, but you know, funny, I didn't even discuss it with you, I don't think. So it's interesting that
No, it's
yeah,
yeah.
so it's interesting that we're both kind of thinking along the same lines. And Tides of Truth says, has anyone used Mike Adams' Neo LLM? I don't know what that means. You run a local copy on your PC or server that doesn't require the internet. I'm going to try it. Mike Adams, I don't know what LLM stands for, Tides of Truth, if you can shed a little bit more light on that. Ilya says that he needs to catch some sleep. I'll catch the rest later. Thank you, good night, and thank you for joining. Ilya, appreciate it. We're just
God bless
three memberships away, guys. You can only do the membership on a desktop. You can't do it on your phone for whatever reason. But if you go to my channel where it says memberships, and you can join it in there. And we just need 3 more to make 10. And when I've got 10, I will start doing members only contents. They're going to be maybe live streams like this, maybe videos of information on the stuff that's not going to be available really to the other, to the broader group. Large language model. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, Tides of Truth, let us know how that goes. So he's thinking of using Mike Adams' Neo large language model, which you can run locally on your PC, doesn't need to be connected to the internet.
Well, I spoke to one bloke a few months back who I think had some idea of AI, and he was talking about the fact that this as we know, AI isn't a monolith, technically speaking. Now,
No.
generally speaking, all of these different things are probably all wrapped up together and communicating with each other at some level, right?
Yeah.
But the technology itself is not reducible to ChatGPT or anything. And he said, look, the fact is that you could theoretically take the technology that's behind ChatGPT, you can make it into a downloadable computer program, you could unplug it from the internet, and you can make it do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So he was actually a Catholic, a guy I met in Switzerland, and he said, what about plugging in all of the magisterium, for example, into an AI model, and then you could just ask it, what exactly is the church teaching on this, and it will just give you that.
And
And you don't.
I'm thinking a few steps ahead, going back to my thing about, defense. If you load up the magisterium on it and then you build robots and you make them, give them guns and,
Crusader bots. Yeah.
yeah, defend the realm. Yeah.
That's got to be a fiction book at some point, right? Crusader, a robot Crusader army.
Dude, my problem. This is my problem. I don't have 10,000 people just buying my books every week. If I had that, I'm telling you guys, I would share the tech once I've developed it. Once we have the large anti-gravity flying dreadnoughts to defend the realm, absolutely would protect the rest of you.
With Zeppelins.
Yeah,
A
yes,
nice big
yes.
Crusader anti-gravity Zeppelin just surrounded by Crusader drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we
All
have
kinds.
that? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, James Justwick just became a member. We're down to 2. Just 2 more, guys. Today's being a good stream. That's
Yeah,
excellent.
absolutely.
I just need 2 more. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. And there's something else that there's something else that's happening organically that I don't know how to verbalize this yet, because as you know, you and I have had long philosophical conversations about all sorts of crazy stuff, but
Hmm.
the way my brain works is non-verbal to myself. I know things, and I know that I know, and I know that they're right, but like trying to explain to somebody else is kind of like I'm reminded a little bit of Tesla, because like Tesla used to run the machines that he built. He used to run them in his head, and then, oh no, there's a problem, it doesn't work, and then he'd like change something in his head, run the machine again, and he'd keep doing that until it works, and then he'd just build it. And it's like, what the fuck? And he used to do one drawing, that was it, and it was like small drawings, and it'd be like, oh, just build it this way. And people are like, yeah, but what are your, like, preliminary drawings? Because, well, I don't need the preliminary drawings because I've run it in my head, it works, so just build it this way. And it's fucking, you're like, whoa, that guy was how the fuck do you do that, right? And I don't do that, but I have like some kind of weird blobby formation in my head that goes, oh right, that's right, that's true, that works. And then to translate that into words that I can explain to other people is like a painful process that
That's the slow part. Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
working on that for more than 30 years. Like when I wrote The Face on Mars, it was hell. It was like writing was absolutely painful, because it's like, okay, well, how do I explain that in words that make sense? And I've now been writing for 30 years, and I've kind of almost got there. But basically, there's this concept that I'm going to try and verbalize now before I'm ready to do so. So I don't know if it'll work, but I can sense that the more you work with this stuff that we're talking about, the concepts of how do you get away from the AI, how do you use the AI to protect the truth, and so on. And it just organically seems to flow into the people around you. For example, my eldest daughter has now caught the bug of cooking, and she's starting to like make cookies and make cakes, and then she started to make like pastas with like sauces and stuff. And it's like, she's only 12, but so on the one hand I'm thinking, cool, my kid's so cool. At 12 years old she's doing all this cool stuff. And then on the other hand I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, a 12-year-old girl 300 years ago was basically running a household. uh, it's just we've become so, 13-year-old boys used to like run armies, because if he's the prince he's got to
Yeah.
like, and it's like, oh fuck yeah. But the thing is, it's happening organically. I've never forced her into that or even asked her. It was just like, oh, it's happening organically. And I can see it with my son, and he's like, he just wants to be out into the bush. He wants to like chop things down and, like shoot with this like toy gun. We found a toy gun that was like, I don't know if I even ever bought that for him. I don't know if somebody gave one, I know it wasn't bought by his mum. If somebody bought it, it must have been me, but I don't remember doing it. But anyway, he's got a 1911 replica, a little toy gun, plastic crappy thing that was just like left out into the forest for like, lost there for like weeks. And then I found it, and I was like, oh, let me just clean this. It had like algae growing on it and whatever. We cleaned it all up. And I said, hey boy, here's your toy gun. And he's like, oh, thank you, Daddy. And I never mentioned anything about this to him. And then I discovered he's going to bed with it and putting it under his pillow. Like,
Yeah.
fuck. It's like, yeah, that's epigenetics from your granddad, because my father used to sleep with a gun under his pillow. When I grew up in Italy when I was a little kid, he used to have a loaded gun under his pillow. Like, that's just how he slept. It was just like, who the fuck told him to do that? It's kind of weird, but like I don't. I mean, I follow the rules and whatever, but it's just interesting. Uh, it's like, huh, and it's spreading through the even the younger ones, or like you can see the organic, like natural way of doing things, and it's spreading to my wife's way of thinking is changing drastically, and again organically. I'll come up with something and say, oh, by the way, I was thinking about it, and she'll be like, I've been thinking about that. And you know, what about this and this and this? So it's like we're sort of returning to a more natural way of living. It's really quite interesting. And the only parallel I can make to it is like, when I had my road to Damascus moment, I think I've told the story before. Some months later down the line, or a year later, or whatever, I was having dinner with my now wife, and I realized, I don't know how we got onto it, but I realized, oh, I've gone from not believing the resurrection could possibly be true to, like, if it was just for me, for my own sake, I would die before I denied Jesus Christ. It's like, I have no idea how that happened. I still don't. But it was like an organic sort of just like, you know? And the more you stick with like Catholic truths and you start to live that way, the more it just like, it's sort of like,
But you remember, not too long after we met, actually, one of the best stories I think that encapsulates this for me was I'd come to your house for the first time, and do you remember there was going to be a mass in your house? Yeah.
yes.
So and we had just painted it, so we were there scrubbing the floors and trying to get all the paint off. And now I was an atheist like just a year or two before that, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I turned around and said to you while we were scrubbing the floors, like, do you know what? If you had told me that, like, in 2 years you'll just be in Italy somewhere with some random guy you just met on the internet, like scrubbing his floor in preparation for a Catholic mass, right? I would have said you're crazy. And I looked at you and said, like the weirdest thing about it is that it's just not weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that, and I've
yeah,
I've had that conversation with our other mate, which is,
yeah,
he
yeah,
he came down here to visit with his new wife,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they've now had a baby and that, and we mentioned this, like, isn't life funny, and his wife was like, and I said, oh, do you not realize that you are now married to this man because I have a blog
Yeah.
that his dad reads, or I
Yeah.
read his blog, he read mine, whatever. And she's like, wait, what? Like, yeah, that's why you married to him now, because of this crazy Italian that writes a blog. That's kind of, you know, and I could see the penny drop, and she's like, oh, and it's like, yeah, isn't life, real life is really strange. It's really
It is
weird.
really strange. And he and I talk about that because obviously, we're quite good friends and
Yeah,
we have that conversation quite regularly, but we have it so often now that it's almost just completely just
yeah, it's just
non
how things
just
are.
commonplace, right? We will kind of look back and kind of realize where we are now in particular, be like, it's nuts. Like if we
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought about this a few years ago. But yeah, it's so normal now that we're just like, yeah, it's
you know
just cool.
I
You
used
know?
to like have difficulty trying to explain that to people, because my entire life has been like that. It's like, oh, I turned left when I was driving down the road this one time, and then I met this person because I was lost, and we started talking, and because of that I went to study like engineering instead of, it's like, wait, what? you basically turned left because you took the wrong road, and your whole life is just like, brrr.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that happens to me like throughout my life. There's a whole, when people try and tell me, oh, where do they ask you the random question, oh, so where do you come from? I was like, oh, I can't answer that question. Like, have you got 16 hours of time so I can explain to you in summary like how my life went? But now that I'm surrounded by other people that follow kind of what they, I think that the reason this is like that is people that follow what they instinctually feel at the deepest level is the truth. When you will go towards what you feel absolutely is true and right and good, people that do that, they invariably have very, very, very interesting lives. And even though I wasn't a Catholic most of my life, I've always tried to do that. So I was so far out in the sticks that, it was a long road to get to where I am. but yeah, I can't remember who was it. Oh yeah, a guy I used to work with. Guy I used to work with more than 10 years ago. When I was working at his in with him. That's when my daughter was born. I was working with him at that time, And I just saw recently something happen to the company that he was quite high up in. He was, and I said, oh, by the way, I've heard this news. I hope all is okay and whatever. And we sort of did a brief catch up, a couple of texts. And he goes, hey, what are you up to? What's going on? And just in a summary of like one paragraph of telling him what's happened in the last 10 years. So, the last thing he knows is like, I had a daughter with this woman, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, oh, well, that went to shit, and this whole thing happened, and then I got married again, and I've got another 3 kids, and I'm living in Italy, and I bought a farm, and I've got a truffle, and I'm trying to like be a farmer, and it's like, fuck. And you're just like, wow, dude, you could write a book. I said, oh no, in those 10 years, I've written about a dozen books. Just not about me, but it's like fucking hell. You couldn't like keep up, sort of thing. And yeah, it's totally weird, if you.
I've got to the point where I have to just not do it because, as you know, my job is as an English teacher. So part of that is I literally just meet new people
Yeah,
like every other day, and it's invariably those kind of icebreaker conversations like, oh, who are you? Where do you live? How long
yeah,
do you live there for? And one of the first things I have to say is, yeah, I've moved 30 times in the last 3 years.
yep,
Yeah. And the first time somebody asked me, "Oh, what did you do that for?" Like I try to explain it a bit, but now that like the 50th person asked me, I'm like, I was busy, you know.
no, yeah, I exactly that.
Busy.
I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Anyway, what about you? What kind of coffee do you like?
yeah, I can relate because I'm 55 and I've moved 54 times, so I'm
Yeah,
settled
yeah.
down now. Settled down. It's like,
I'm hungry for it, to be honest with you. There's one thing I've got to the point now where I do want to stay at least in one place for at least a year. Yeah,
yeah,
it'd be quite nice to change of pace, but it's been interesting. It's been
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
So let's see. Nationalist says the AI hates me already. I got banned from Amazon and Facebook in the last 2 days, and I don't even use them. Whoa, dude! I don't know what you're doing, but well, I guess that's bye to my channel. I
You
guess.
must be awesome at picking online names.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. I'm curious. I'm looking into Rumble just because I want to be able to discuss things. Do you think there's a way that an AI could help to upload to a Rumble channel all the old videos that I've got saved?
Good question. I'll dig around for it. The only thing that I can say with confidence now about AI is that there's way more tools for it than we were
Yeah.
aware of 6 months ago. I can't promise anything on that. I haven't seen anything like that, but I'll have a look because there's stuff for everything now. So
Oh,
yeah,
there you go. One of the members might have come up with it.
true,
Tides
true,
of,
true.
Tides of Truth says, haha, the Vatican might come for you if you try to share your anti-grav tech. Oh, well, I know that. That if I said that when I wrote The Face on Mars, like 28 years ago. I said, oh, by the way, guys, I'm aware that this technology is dangerous, so I'm okay with you keeping it hidden. So just but they still broke into my house, tapped my phones, and did all sorts of shit. But I think they know I'm not like the kind of guy to go like, oh, by the way, guys, here's how you build a anti-gravity spaceship. Let me just put that on the internet for everybody to do their own thing. Not really how I work. So ironic keyboard says 1911. Nice. Whoever gave it to him has good taste. Well, I don't remember if it was me that bought it, or maybe it was. I just remembered because yeah, I bought him two actually. There was a little revolver, which that was really for his sister because it was smaller. He's got the full size 1911 plastic one, but yeah, yeah. Even just that, like in England, if you say like your kids play with toy guns as toddlers, they look at you like, oh, isn't that a bit is that a bit dangerous? There's a violent man. I don't know if we should talk to him, Mary. I don't know, Bob. Yeah, I think it's dangerous. He's letting his kids play with toy guns. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a hate crime or something. I don't know. It's
It's
just
weird because every time I come back here, I come back here like every few months or whatever, and it just becomes more and more apparent each time
yeah.
how just kind of whipped the country is. I'm
What,
not
what's
saying
your
that the other countries, go on.
what's your take on that? I know we're sort of going off the tangent a bit, and keep in mind that we're on YouTube, so terms of service.
Yeah. Look, one of the biggest things I mention in front of my people I've spoke to in Europe is that the problem with the English is that we just kind of don't care. We're far too in the middle about things. So, what I've noticed, for example, from my visits to places like Italy and France, is that the Italian liberals are just awful people,
Yeah,
and French liberals are even worse, right?
they
Because they're
are.
French.
Yes. Well, they're French.
They're,
Yes.
they're the worst of the worst in a sense. But in a sense, to give them credit, it's because they actually give a shit about their liberalism.
Mm.
And the Catholic French are actually extremely impressive people. I've got a lot of respect for the
Yeah.
Catholic French and how many
Yeah.
of them there are.
Yeah.
I've got to say as well, and I'm not exaggerating here, the British Catholics are fucking awesome as well. There's just
Oh,
not
yeah.
many like this.
Absolutely. Oh, well,
Absolutely fantastic.
those friends of ours that are moving soon to Nicaragua.
Mm.
Um, actually, they're Brit. I mean, I love those guys. They're so. It's such a cool mixture of absolutely
So well-rounded.
rock
Yeah.
solid based people, but so kind, polite, charitable, friendly.
Genteel. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well
Yeah,
educated. Their kids are awesome, and yet they're like, I don't know. To me, I look at them and I sort of think, yeah, one day when I grow up, I'm gonna try and be like. I'm gonna be trying Catholic like that dude. He's cool. Like the way I feel is like I'm the scruffy kid covered in blood, guts, and mud and pig shit, and just sort of like, oh yeah, we're going to church. Oh, all right. I'm just gonna try and keep quiet at the back here while you guys, do your thing. They're far better Catholics than I'll ever be, but yeah, I love them. They're great people. But that's the thing, and you can understand now why they had to destroy the mass, because otherwise any Catholic anywhere on the planet could go to mass and it would know exactly what's going on. It was the same mass everywhere, and we gotta bring that back, really.
well, I unfortunately attended a Novus Ordo service recently because one of my family members passed away,
Oh,
and
sorry about that.
I didn't, I didn't, yeah, I didn't take part in the service, obviously, but it was staggering to see just
Yeah,
even for a funeral how irreverent the service is.
yeah, it
You know,
is.
and it was a kind of surreal situation to be in because you could tell that everyone in the room was being as sincere as they knew how to be. You know, but it was just like you're just like you're just giving out like there's just two people standing. You just hand out the Eucharist as if it's like a snack to have for breakfast. Like what the.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the passages in there were really ugly, and the whole fact that the service just felt so soft and watered down. It's perverse. It's
yeah,
really
and
perverse.
it is. I mean, I had that feeling. I walked out of a Novus Ordo mass long before I became baptized or anything. I was just like, I'm not taking part in this nonsense, and I was a heathen at the time. But that feeling that you just described, and I'm telling you because you're a young, clever dude, and maybe you can expand this to others somehow. But that feeling that you just experienced, if you pay attention to the regular things in life, and I'm gonna say a stupid thing now that's not true, but like the way you take a bus, the way you catch a bus on your daily routine. Once you start to understand what that actually involves and entails, you'll be like, oh my god, it's all a sewer. It's everything that we think is normal and good and okay. It's actually all completely fucked up. And I've got nothing against people taking the bus. By the way, I'm just like saying I'm making a silly example just to be clear
I know, I know.
that that once you start to see it, it's like when you first start to understand the root of evil, right? And then it's like, oh, it's fucking everywhere. It's like you're a
Yeah,
detective, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, there's just people dying. Well, people die, people die. And then, like, as a detective walking around through all the dead bodies, you're sort of like, oh, wait a minute, there's a fingerprint here. There's a weird fingerprint. Well, let's keep that. Maybe that's a clue. And then every single dead body that you go to has got the same fingerprint right here on the forehead, and you're like, well, shit, that ain't a coincidence anymore. It's like the veil was dropped from your eyes about how things really work. It's just,
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is I sometimes get, I don't know if you'd even call them moments of doubt, but maybe it's like demons jumping in, like, "Ha, can we try and argue out of this again?"
yeah,
And I do because obviously, if you look at our situation from the outside and what we believe and where we are, what we believe, it's unprecedented for most people, right? It seems nuts, and so sometimes I
yeah,
do just kind of second guess and check myself and think, what if it is all wrong? and then within about a second, this fact comes up and this fact comes up and and it's like, oh no, even if I tried to argue against it, it would be completely fucking impossible.
Well, the other thing is
It's
that you know
how the things are.
what you're saying is that it looks nuts. It looks nuts today, but if you go back for the last 1,500 years, it didn't look nuts
Oh
at
no,
all.
that's not what I'm saying is nuts. What I'm saying is like, if you say to people, we're in this position where the church has been completely infiltrated by Satanists, the whole government is
Oh, yeah.
run by satanic imposter
Yeah.
pedophiles and whatever, and all that kind of stuff. We as a small group look kind of crazy to that, and our general worldview appears crazy to most people. And so sometimes I have like a little intellectual exercise where I try and argue against that worldview again, like as if I'm
Oh,
going at it from scratch.
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is just no, it
Yeah.
just bounces off like rubber.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's like arguing
I
two
would
plus
have
two
to
is not
deny
four. Yeah.
all logic and facts that I know at like the deepest level.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then
You know,
become a normie again. No,
it's what like it's the gulf, the abyss, the galactic space between Catholics and Protestants when they say like, but what about? And you're like, dude, you're like some kind of species of pretend human trying to tell me that like 2 + 2 purple green.
I've got to the point now. I don't know how effective it is in terms of convincing people, but I've got to the point now where if a Protestant says anything about Christian doctrine on my channel, my
Yeah.
response is very simply, your view is completely irrelevant because you have no authority to say what Christian doctrine is.
That's actually that's actually kind of brilliant. I don't know if it'll work because of course you need to have a functioning logical brain for that to like sink in, but
Yeah.
it's a brilliant little seed. It's like doop.
Well, it's just a wall I've put up now as well, right? Because it's like I'm not going to get into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
argument about how you think Phoenicians means this or
yeah,
whether this passage in Galatians, but you have no authority to say what
yeah,
this means.
yeah.
None. So you're irrelevant. Sorry.
That's
You can quote
beautiful.
a Pope or a catechism or something, great. If not, go away.
I've got to say, Tony, if I look back on how long have we known each other now? 4 years,
3 years,
three,
I think.
four, something like that.
3 or 4. It's coming up to 4. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I think back to the timid young man that you were, and now how you wield the battle axe of truth, I feel proud. I feel like, oh, good. He's a young man is like coming up well, taking scalps, and yes, yes.
Well, definitely seeing your approach to things was definitely a kind of eye-opening. It was broadened my horizons as a kind of very, very polite, genteel young English man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had that argument with my wife, as you know, sometimes, when she's like, "You're a bit too harsh with the kids." I'm like, "Lady, but don't you understand? They'll get upset with you." And I'm like, "Listen, the brutality that it came to was like, listen, let's just put a hypothetical here that if I know that by my being a little bit hard on them, um, their life will absolutely be good. They'll be able to correctly figure shit out, and they'll and be happy. But the downside is they'll hate my guts and never want to speak to me again as soon as they reach the age of 18 or whatever, and they'll leave home. I'll push that button right the fuck now, because the alternative is, oh no, I'm your best friend as daddy, but your life goes to
Mm,
shit because I
mm,
wasn't courageous enough to do the painful thing of occasionally kicking your ass when you need it, which it's not like I enjoy doing it. It's not like I'm doing it because I'm upset that day. If I'm imposing a rule, it's because it needs to be imposed, for your own good, whether you realize it or not. And at the same time, it's also it's fractal because you sort of think, I I was never much one to go like, oh, poor me, why me? Why does this terrible thing happen to me? Even when I was atheist for the brief period of time, I
mm.
was Zen agnostic. It was pretty much like, oh, well, I lost a leg. Well, shit, better limp, better hop, And it's like, I was never kind of one to sort of feel too sorry for myself. But at the same time, it's even less so now because it's like, oh, Oh yeah, I lost a leg because I stepped in a fucking mine like an idiot. Yeah, well, I knew about there's a minefield there. Yeah. Oh well, now we know, why that happened.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah, exactly.
thanks, Dad.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's a kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But look, to go back to the whole idea of being kind of uh, swinging the sword, so to speak, even if it's just in apologetics. What a lot of people don't realize is, I always laugh at it now when people on like Social Galactic and stuff give you shit for being rude. The thing that always makes me laugh about that is the fact that when I first saw you doing your thing on Social Galactic, I thought you were rude. I thought, oh, this guy's a bit of a dick. But the thing that got me was like, but I also just don't fucking care because he's making some good points.
yeah.
You know,
Well, that's the thing
um,
that my hand slap is a steel glove wrapped in an iron fist, but the reason it works is because the rhetoric, which is woundfully offensive, is what sticks. It was like, and then because that
yeah,
hurts, you're like, but now I'm going to argue his point. Oh, but I can't.
yeah,
Because otherwise it's like, hey, he's just said that 2 + 2 is 4, but he hasn't taken into account purple, haha, and 2 and 2 is purple. Instead it's like, bang! Oh, he hit me in the head with a 2x4, which is a stick that measures 2 and 2 is 4. But oh shit, purple, except for the bruise on my head, doesn't exist with this. And it forces them to think. I've been aware of that since a very young age. I know that my way of doing things very often means people like want to stay away from me, don't come. But the thing is, it plants a seed there that like 10 years later, you'll meet the guy again and they'll be like, oh, you're that asshole that, well, yeah, actually you were kind of right. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's a win-win because for those 10 years, you don't bug me with your stupid shit that doesn't work. And when you eventually evolve to the point where my seed that was planted 10 years ago that you don't want to remember was really me doing it, great. Now we can talk, so
yeah.
it's sort of like, yeah.
And like you say, it's for you. It's been a way of kind of wheat and chaff, isn't it? Right? Because I know that
Yeah,
one of the way you explained it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, look, if you actually can't see through the rhetoric, then you're not worth talking to anyway,
yeah,
right?
very much so.
So your
Absolutely.
logic isn't there; it's just your emotions. So
Yeah,
what are you supposed to do?
that's why I've had a little. If you've been to the blog or the last video, that Andrew Wilson guy, where I'm like, kind of,
Yeah,
I'm trolling him. I am absolutely trolling him because I like the guy. I like how he argues. He's got some very good points. I pretty much agree with most of the stuff he says, but he made the tragic error of trying to like say Catholics agree with the Orthodox and
he made the tragic error of being the wrong religion, didn't he? So
yeah, exactly. But I recently saw a little snippet of him saying like I can't remember the context. It was one of those like brain rot podcasts. So just like, but in it he was saying, look, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter like what you are never. There is absolutely nothing that you can do or say that is ever going to convince me that your hedonistic, godless lifestyle is correct. There's absolutely nothing you can do. There's nothing that's going to change my mind about my belief system. Which I thought, oh, this guy might be one of those that would like actually get his head chopped off before denying Christ, despite the fact that he's a schismatic. um, and so I very much doubt that he's in any way going to change his position from Eastern Orthodox to Sedevacantist, but who knows? And I just sort of like I recognize the sort of a kindred spirit in the fact that he is absolutely seeking the truth to the best of his ability. And of course, he's an American, so the best of his ability falls short. But what can we say? Making friends and influencing people—that's me. Yeah. Let me just catch up with the chat again. Times of Truth says, my Canadian friend saw my gun safe and she was a bit freaked out. What's up with Canadian fear of guns? It's not just Canadians, dude. It's pretty much everybody except right-thinking people. Woolly Ram, I can't imagine my childhood without playing with sticks and toy guns in random caves and abandoned buildings. Yeah. or building sites where we, of course, illegally and completely against every rule and law of health and safety, invariably invaded as soon as the workmen were off site. Ironic Keyboard says, grew up in the Novus Ordo Church. It's a different religion than Catholicism. Yeah, it is. And welcome. It's very, very good of you to be able to do that, because I think if you brought up as a whatever religion, nobody ever tried to even remotely teach me any religion. They basically all told me, it's all bullshit anyways. That was about the extent of it. But if you're raised in a Novus Ordo, I think it's quite it's harder to, get out of it, I think.
Yeah, in some ways. In other ways, it's easier to see just how bollocks it is. I mean, I'll give you just one story that crystallized that for me. I mean, firstly, as a kind of background, I used to visit some of them because my Maltese grandmother would take me to Nova Sordo Mass. And
Yeah.
it wasn't something my parents did. It was something, when she was babysitting me, would go along. So I had the kind of the flavor of it.
Yeah.
And plus, I went to a nominally, Nova Sordo school.
Yeah.
Again, not because my family was religious, but it's just because they said they wanted to get me a good education.
Yeah.
So I was at least kind of privy to it and saw it on a regular basis. This is the craziest part of it. So I was in so-called Nova Sordo education for my entire childhood, right, 15, 16 years or whatever. And it wasn't until after that, after I went to college, after I went to university, that I started considering Christianity really properly. And at the time, I was living with my then flatmate, who also went to the same school as me and also went to a Catholic primary school and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was reading Mere Christianity, right? So not even
Yeah.
a Catholic book.
No.
And it was discussing the Trinity. And there was a part in there where I had to put it down. And I looked over to my then flatmate and I said, Ollie, do you not realize that Jesus is supposed to be God? And he kind of paused for a second, looked up and went, no, dude, seriously, I think if it was that important, somebody would have told us by now.
Oh yeah. That's brilliant. Wow. Well, you got a good Catholic education, Tony. It's just fucking up. That's astonishing. Wow.
Yeah, I was sort of.
Yeah, Woolly Ram, I think when we were talking about how I know I was an atheist for a while, but it's gone. That's very interesting because I can remember my mindset. I can remember the logical, semi-logical conclusions I'd made. And it's like the way I see it now is like, it's the same feeling as looking back on when you were a kid and, I don't know, you thought dragons existed or something, It's just sort of like, oh yeah, what a silly, unthought out and kind of dumb, like limited way of looking at things I had back then. It's just, yeah. But yeah, because of course you fed lies and you grow up with that and you sort of think, oh, that's... Woolly Ram says, Sola Scriptura, who collected, edited, preserved, annotated, commented, and promulgated the scripture worldwide? Well, it was Bob, wasn't it? Bob, the local pastor.
No. Our church knows the real truth, and it was actually Keith.
There you go.
Yeah. They suppressed Keith from the very beginning.
Underbear says, ciao, hello. Yeah, it's astonishing, really. Oh, okay, we'll be going 2 hours.
We have, yeah.
Oh,
so
I'm trying to get myself back on a somewhat reasonable time frame of sleep and work, but it's just been raining constantly for about 4 days. Really? So yeah, I'm surprised the internet has lasted as well as it has recently. But yeah,
I've been long thinking that too. Something that would be really useful for, well, you've probably already thought of this, but water collection should be quite easy on your property.
Well, what I'd like to do is build a well, but again, money. It's all about money.
Well, the amount of rainfall you got, I thought,
there is there was actually a rain catchment thing that went into kind of not a proper well, but like a little container. The problem with that is the electrical pump to it is kind of messed up, and you can't really use it for drinking water because I don't know what the state of that. You'd have to cut all the concrete out, open it up, and disinfect it.
There was a video I saw. I need to grab it. I might do that ASAP. But I think I saw a video of a guy who had invented a self-siphoning pump. So I'll send you a link to that. And there
Oh,
was
that'd be
another one
fun.
I saw, a group of people in Africa who had made a really nice water filtration system. They had these like huge, multi-gallon kind of drums, but it was like
Yeah,
four of them,
yeah,
and each one would be a different compartment for a different filtration
yeah,
sediment. Like charcoal and then sand and then gravel.
yeah.
You were showing that you could do that with quite large quantities,
You
pretty
can,
cost
yeah,
effectively.
you can. I mean, you can set up some decent gutters and just collect it, like, and filter it. I've got a book that I bought that has got a lot of these kind of projects to do. It's just, again, it's time and effort. I need, what I really
Yeah,
need to do is regulate the amount of income I get to a point where it's sustainable, and I don't have to spend so much time on it, like to
you
generate
can
it.
start buying your time back, so to
Yeah,
speak. Yeah, I understand that.
I have to get to that, and I have to get
Yeah,
to the point where that is sustaining my whole family, which is not easy to do. It's not a huge amount of money that needs to come in, but it needs to be regular and needs to be a bit more so that I can plan ahead, sort of thing. Because right now it's not even on the breadline. I'm having to jump through hoops and do all sorts of stupid shit that I don't really want to be doing. It takes up a lot of time and it's not healthy. So that's where it's at. So 2 more people. Join your membership channel there. Go to the desktop. Get at least 10 of us. I think 10 memberships. I don't remember what they are, but they're probably like 20 or 30 bucks a month. So it's not exactly gonna fix the issue. But if I get 1,000 memberships, yeah, it starts to become useful. If I get 1,000 memberships, you bet I'm gonna be doing members only, like, data information podcasts and like produce books or whatever just for them. Because again, if 1,000 people are giving me like $3 a month or whatever, that'll be enough. But I have to build that up, and to build that up takes time, and I have to nick that time from doing other things like getting the olives collected and paid for and all that. So it's just, I have to pay some people to help me because I can't do it all by myself. I have to clean up under the trees because the hypnosis I had brainwashed you and Sylvester and a couple of other people with, it's just worn off, and I don't have like my free
I'm on to
slave,
bigger things.
loyal henchmen. I mean, don't have my brainwashed slaves. I mean, loyal friends to like give me
I've
a
shed
hand.
enough blood on your property, mate.
You have indeed.
I probably have shed a bit of blood there, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, you did.
Bloody devil fawns.
Oh, you still have all your fingers and toes, you whiner.
True.
Underbear says, going to set out on the Camino San Benedetto this November, 193 miles in 2 weeks. Very good. Learning some of these farming ways at my aunt's olive grove and vineyard in Latina. Excellent. They collect rainwater from the roofs of every building. Well, sounds like there's a gentleman there that wants to come and cut some grass around my property, clear out my trees. I think you should come here and learn the old ways. Tides of Truth says, thank you for the stream. Tides of Truth, I think you've now been forgiven for your long ago missing I'd given you a chance to have an interview. It's now been forgiven because you skipped it because you were scared. So maybe we should have one if you want. Woolly Ram says, still have all my original DNA, nothing to complain about. There you go. That's kind of worrying. Why wouldn't you have all your original DNA? I mean, what could you be doing that corrupts your DNA with like other people's DNA, Woolly? Don't go down that route.
What other weird stuff happens in Israel?
It's true. Yeah, I'm sort of glad to see that the vicious World War III that's breaking out in Israel is sort of a little bit more of. I mean, I'm not saying I'm sure some poor bastard that got one of those things landing on his ass is not happy at all, but shots from bats. Yes, bats. The evil creatures, bats. It reminds me of a Calvin and Hobbes things where he's like going to do a presentation at the front of the class and he goes, bats, the scourge of insects from the sky. And the whole classroom goes, bats are not insects. Shut up, what do you all know? Am I doing the presentation or you fools? Like, yep. Bats. They spread disease, like this Morgellons and all sorts of disease. Bats, just evil mammals of the sky.
It's only ever the bats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bats in small hats.
Although Chinese bats are the worst, Apart from Rwandan bats could be worse.
Do you know what I think would be even worse than Chinese bats? American military grade Chinese bats.
Yeah, yes, but they still need human operators. And they would be American.
Game over.
And the bear says, it's the bat soup. We didn't think of the bat soup. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna call it a night unless somebody in the chat or you have something else that you wanna mention.
Just check my list of notes here.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we basically covered anything. I mean, I had another kind of big topic I wanted to mention, but I think we've already covered it enough that we'd agree
Cool.
anyway. I mean,
Go
I was
for it.
basically just going to mention this idea that, I mentioned that the two kind of key parts of human thinking from what we can decide are both reason and imagination, right? And this was just maybe a tidbit, but it occurred to me that they're basically the two ingredients of 3D thinking, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a combination of those two things. And so,
Essentially, yes.
yeah, using your reason properly and using your imagination properly. And that, again, I really want to see that this is why this is not just an interesting thing in terms of like using the AI for whatever purposes, but thinking about how to improve education and stuff
Yeah.
moving forward. And I think one lucky thing I've seen recently is that there is a growing desire for, especially among parents, to actually have their kids think properly.
Yes.
Because everyone's aware of this stupefaction or stupefaction that's going on, and even if they've drunk the Kool-Aid enough themselves, there's still a sense of like, I actually want my kids to be able to think for themselves. And
One other thing that I should mention, I mean, it's implied, but to actually spell it out, that I think is really, 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 really important is the physical ability of children. So, like my mate that's been helping me with the tractor, his ability with fixing a tractor and knowing what to do with a tractor is like, it's way beyond anything I could even imagine because I don't know anything about tractors. I never had anything to do with them. But pretty much anything else that is physical, mechanical stuff to fix or anything to do with guns or how to figure out where like the impact point is, that stuff. I can figure all of that out and then some. And I think in the coming AI stupefaction of the planet, I don't think, certainly not in my lifetime, I don't think there's ever going to be a point at which the AI robots are going to be able to have enough imagination is not the right word because they don't have any, but enough data sets to come up with ways to do stuff. Like, for example, I don't know, your 1983 diesel only, no GPS, no computers in it, Land Rover breaks down, and a guy that knows what the hell to do, he can patch it up and fix it, or even build the part that he needs that broke out of using a metal lathe. And while, yes, there's a machine that can do the metal lathe bit, and there's another machine that can probably identify what the problem is, it's going to be fucking decades before.
well, I remember speaking to I actually asked ChatGPT the question a while back. What are your limits compared to human reasoning? And two of the things it mentioned is the fact that it can't be imaginative, it can't be genuinely creative,
No.
and it can't draw upon what we would understand as intuitional reasoning, right?
Yeah.
And you and I both understand that that's because not only what we've already talked about with the human relation to truth, kind of more abstractly, but our relationship with truth is an embodied thing. Our neural network is something that's distributed throughout the whole body, for example, and it's something we thinking in a sense is a full body experience.
Yeah.
And if you add to that the entire kind of accumulated, specific, unique experience that forms every human life, then that kind of signature of understanding, of deep understanding with certain things, is uniquely human. I think in that sense, the genuine sense of mastery that we have is always going to be uniquely human, and especially mastery over tactile things like sculpture and mechanics and building and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I think if you make your kids capable physically to like deal with physical reality, it's a dying skill. It's like, just think about
And will
the
come out a premium later, right? This is another thing that occurred to me. The more that I mean, it's as brutal and kind of economic as it's going to sound, as if everyone becomes stupefied in the ooze of just banality,
yeah.
then everyone else who can actually think for themselves is going to be at a premium in terms of what their skills can actually offer
Yeah,
to
your
the world.
average plumber is going to be living in luxury because,
Yeah, yeah.
until they replace all the pipes with like pipes that can then be replaced by robots, which is going to take a while. You know, the thing is, you still need
Imagine
humans.
that. Imagine if all of your pipes literally walk out of the room because they're nanobots and you'd said something bad about gay people.
Yeah, well, I wasn't even going that far. I was just going to the point where, like, if a pipe breaks, it automatically sends out a robot that like digs it up and
Right.
replaces it.
Yeah.
That's I was going there. It's going to be a while before they do that. And even if they get to that, that technology is not going to be global for a very, very simple reason that nobody is like done the maths. But I always do the maths. You don't have enough lithium batteries, copper wires,
Right.
all of that stuff to build it
Mm,
everywhere. So if I'm
mm.
out in the sticks of Appalachia with my 50 caliber or rural Italy in the middle of nowhere village, guess what? Your robot dog ain't gonna go that far. No? Yeah, you'll have all the drones and the satellites and blah blah blah. And who's gonna maintain them?
Well, this is two hopeful things as well on the kind of big picture scale, but one practical thing, one more kind of spiritual. But you know, you mentioned in Brave New World, you have that story of the kind of outland people, and that's just in the story of Brave New World. But I remember fucking the World Economic Forum released a little video 2 or 3 years back, which they then scrubbed, especially
Oh,
after COVID. But
oh,
the video was about basically how they were designing these little smart cities, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you've either seen it or you haven't. But I remember during that, it was a little animation they made. It was only like 4 or 5 minutes long, but they were kind of presenting this perfect life of this fictional woman who lived in this like 5 minute city or whatever. And then after they gave this amazing narrative of how she was going to have like a car take her to work and do all of her stuff for her, and
yeah.
she would just like be with all the other drones in their office or whatever. She said, "But what about all the other people who didn't choose to be in the city?" And it said about them being like crazy people in these like shack slums outside of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
wilderness, and they're like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
they've all made such a bad choice." Now, the only reason why I mention that is not only because it's kind of entertaining, but the fact that even the World Economic Forum have kind of recognized ahead of time that they're not going to have everyone in these bubbles.
No.
They're not going to have everything be the hive. And this goes to the second point, which is that one of the rules, so to speak, of the divine game is that there's always a choice. There's always going to be some element of you have to choose to stay there. If they're going to create the matrix and start plugging people into it, there's a point at which you have to press the button to turn it on.
It's not just that,
So
but the corollary to that is, even when it looks absolutely hopeless, in fact, I would say even more so then, there is always a way. There is always a way that you can overcome the shit. And I I come at that from a purely life experience on my own skin thing that I've had it in multiple, many times. And I think it's part of my, I did martial arts since I was a little kid, and that is very much a fundamental way of how I think. But you know, it's when you're surrounded by three guys beating the crap out of you and you're like broken nose and you can't see anymore and you're just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. But you just keep going. And then eventually it's like, bang, you break through and you're like, fuck, not only did I survive that, but I came out of it like better than I thought could even be possible. And this is the same thing, because there are spiritual realities on which everything rests. And the spiritual realities that these people are pushing, they're real, but they are evil. And evil spiritual reality does not win. In the long run, the spiritual evil reality cannot win because its foundation is flawed. And no matter how overpowering it can be for a time, and yeah, that time could be 200 years or whatever, but eventually it will collapse. And when it collapses, that's the time where we need to have the people that are like, oh, well, we're not just going to let you rebuild it. You've collapsed, and we're going to make sure that everyone that was involved in this disappears, because that's what needs to happen. So, when I'm saying those crazy, the perfect city. And if you haven't seen it, I can't remember if it was on Prime or Netflix, but it's actually worth watching. I think it was called Brave New World. It's again a limited series or something. It really was worth looking at. It was pretty well made, and there was absolutely the stratification of strata within the city and the crazy. Yeah,
okay.
it is quite recent. It's really well made. It's worth watching. The thing is, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, well, of course I would be out there, with a single action built by myself gun or a zip gun or whatever. I'd be one of those guys out there in the sticks. But the thing is, those guys out there in the sticks are going to continue to exist. You can't get rid of them. Because ultimately, yes, you can have all the robots you want, but whether it's 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, or 200 years, eventually the machines will break down. Eventually, you will need a human that understands how to build that machine to fix it, and he won't exist anymore. Like, they don't exist now. They don't exist now.
To take anything, evil is anti-reality,
Yeah,
it's anti-truth and anti-reality. And for evil to even do anything that it does, that's why it's fundamentally parasitic, right? You
yeah,
still need some level of people who are connected enough to good to make things even function,
exactly. I mean, we've got
Um,
it now. Look at software. Look at, like,
yeah.
the reason I got it to Apple is because, well, it just works. And my ancient, like, first laptop on Apple still works perfect. This new one that I'm using, the big one, it's starting to look like a Windows computer. It takes 45 minutes to switch on and 20 minutes to open a program. And it's just like, what the fuck? And you ask top IT people, oh, how do I fix this? You go to the Apple store with a guru guy and he's like, oh, can't be helped. Which
Yeah, yeah,
reminds me of a graphic novel called Martha Washington Goes to War. And it's a graphic novel about this black lady who, like, is in the military, and it's set in the future. And there is this theme throughout. It's a very clever little graphic novel, sort of like The Watchmen was very clever in the way it, like, had, like, subplots. But one of the subplots of this graphic novel is like nothing works, and people are just lazy and stupid. It's like, oh, well, I don't know how to fix that. It's sort of like the equivalent of a Zen-G guy trying to, like, use a rotary phone from the
yeah,
1960s. Like,
yeah.
well, how does it work? What is this? Where's the screen? It doesn't have a screen to push the buttons. So, and we're already there in a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, me included. I mean, say, like, whatever, we have the apocalypse happens and my iPad breaks. How do I fix the iPad? Well, we can now use it as a thing to put hot plates on, so we don't
Yeah,
burn the
sure,
grass
yeah.
mat that we sleep on. Whatever. I have no idea how does, like, a touch screen work? I don't have a fucking clue.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like there's already very few people that can do that. And yes, they're paying them and they're, like, giving them all sorts of, keeping them entertained with, like, children, drugs, and prostitutes, I guess, occasionally when, they get tired of the children, I suppose. Like you see what's going on with Sean Combs and Epstein and Weinstein and all those guys. Sure, they're giving them all the worldly goods, but those guys are going to die out, and their children and their children's children, eventually they'll rebel. That, like,
Yeah, because that awful world is nothing really to fight for.
no, I mean,
It's nothing to fight.
Soros, the
Yeah.
son of Soros is truly an evil scumbag, and he will absolutely continue his father's legacy. I can see that already just because of who he's hooked up with and whatever. But eventually that will break, because it does. Oh, by the way, Woolly Ram says military grade just means made by the lowest Nepo baby contractor. Yep. Slanty Chauffeur Bear joined. Thank you, Slanty Bear. We're now down to one. Just one more. And Woolly Ram says, worth remembering they ain't intelligent. So-called AI is a probability engine. Yep. AI can't innovate out of the context it's in my opinion, says Tides of Truth. And Ironic Keyboard says, there is something a mathematician wrote where AI won't last more than 3 generations. It decays as it gets trained on synthetic data, that is data generated by AI itself. Good point.
That's quite an interesting concept.
Very good point. And I absolutely believe that, because keep in mind, they're injecting, it's what we said at the beginning, right? So you've got flawed humans are your connection between truth and the AI. It can only degrade. There's no way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because okay. So so humans are the connection between you and truth, and you as a machine are making all the humans more stupid. Therefore, yeah.
But
okay.
it's not even that. Even if the humans weren't becoming more stupid, even if the humans were giving you the best that they've got, they're flawed.
Right, it would always be a lesser form.
It's a simple maths formula. It's like, you've got this great thing called maths, yay, and then you've got humans in the middle that almost get it, but they've just got this one little error where they say that 0.001 plus 0.001 equals 0.03. That's it. That's the only one error. It's enough. Give that 3 or 4 generations and you can't build a bridge anymore because all the maths is fucked. Yeah. It's just...
We conclude that Martin Luther was a good theologian.
There you go. Yeah. It's, well, you can see that, right? It took 500 years to go from Martin Luther to like, oh, we now have a man that's pretending to be a woman being a deacon of like, but take down the cross because it offends the Muslims church. Okay. Yeah.
You just haven't read Ephesians properly, mate.
There you go. Oh yeah, this is also a nice, good one. Woolly Ram says, in a world of NPCs, a PC is emperor. I'm just biding my time. I hope I'm not too old. And Woolly Ram says, it's ironic that science worshippers can't or won't notice the parallels between AI and evolution. Well, but evolution works perfect, right? I mean, yeah. The maths of evolution all works perfect, right? That we know evolution is the way it works because maths, well, no, we can't do maths, and actually the maths proves that it's not true at all. But let's just ignore that, yeah? And all I can think of now is I can hear J.F. Gillespie going, I don't know, nobody knows where Mama Gillespie is gone. She's just disappeared and she will pop up somewhere. As bones somewhere that he buried there, probably. Allegedly. Underbear goes +1 for rural Italy. Liking it here better than the police state of America. Well, dude, come by. Like I said, I need somebody to chop some brambles under the olive trees. Just a few. I'll supply the gloves. Woolly Ram, if the situation was hopeless, their propaganda would be unneeded. Autists with paint.exe wouldn't be able to overturn 5B. I think it's 5G propaganda. Point 5. Yeah, it is. Just meme away, boys. Meme away. I think in Europe they've made memes illegal now or something. I don't know. Okay. I'm like, yeah, fuck you. Come arrest.
I would love the idea of like, this idea of going back to like more physical stuff. Like we're gonna have to start taking memes, but actually like printing them on cards and just like putting them through people's doors.
Well, that's what that Sam Melia guy did in England. He got
Really?
2 years for printing stickers that said it's okay to be white.
Ah,
What the fuck? You got
ah,
2 years in jail for that. And then they said he wasn't allowed to see or speak to his children. And the courts or whatever, they got tens of thousands of people writing in saying, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So they
hmm,
overturned that and said, and his wife like made a comment, said, "Oh, thank you for all the people that like wrote in because that helped change the they were just putting the guy basically in solitary confinement for 2 years where he couldn't even have any contact with his own children because he's
hmm.
dangerous because he printed stickers saying, 'Oh, it's okay to be white.'" I mean, like, what the fuck? It's just, yeah. Times of Truth says, so true on the machines. I'm on vacation for a week and the entity I am the IT guy for called in a panic because something had broken down. Their work came to a freeze. Luckily, I was able to fix it. Yep. Well, we just need a few guys like that infiltrated, a few hardcore secret sedevacantists, deep it into underbelly of meta. To just go like, oh, it's broken down and nobody knows what to do. And I'm leaving my job now. Thank you for the millions you've paid me. I've built the walled city just outside your walled
This is
city.
an entirely different topic now. Sorry, but just because you mentioned it, I had an idea for a fiction story I'm never going to write. But the idea would be something along the lines of as a Catholic missionary, but he does all of his missionary work inside VR. Um, and I thought, because one of the weird things about VR is that it's one of these spaces in which so many people come together, but it creates an entire different universe of like social dynamic that doesn't exist on the
Yeah.
outside. I'll give you an example of something I saw of that, which just blew my mind. There was a video I saw of a guy who was like kind of a cameraman inside VR, so to speak, and obviously in these universes you can just push your imagination a bit. So
Yeah.
you actually and whatever these two guys were doing, they had such a software that it can like track their hand movements and stuff. So when they were actually speaking together, you could actually
Hmm.
see it really looked like a human kind of quasi-human interaction. I think this application was just called VR Chat, so it was no special game or anything. It was just a chat room. But
Yeah.
obviously, being VR, the chat room could be a fucking dojo in the middle of the cloud somewhere on the moon,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And there was one video I saw where there was like just this weird alien planet surrounded by like mushroom trees and stuff, and there was fucking Winnie the Pooh and Anakin Skywalker, right, having a conversation. Now, as it transpires, when you're listening to this conversation, there's just Winnie the Pooh like looking up with his kind of cute little face, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Anakin like just talking to him, like yeah, yeah, yeah. And turns out whoever Anakin is in real life was an ex fucking military pilot in the U.S. Air Force during one of the Gulf Wars,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how he had killed loads of innocent people as a result of that. And he was basically just having a therapy session with fucking Winnie the Pooh
Yeah.
about how he's got PTSD as a result.
Yeah.
Dude, so it's not just about the idea of like, if it was a story, it wouldn't just be about the fact that it's in VR, but there's a whole different kind of sub community that's on there now, which is odd in many different ways, but quite interesting, I think, in certain ways too.
I think it is interesting, but I think again, it's a bit of a trap in a sense
Yeah.
because how's that going to help you when your tractor breaks down if you don't know how to change the fucking track on your tractor?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And to get back to that, it's like if you build a community in which everybody knows how to fix the track of the tractor and everybody knows how to plant the food and everybody's coming in because as you know, between us Catholics who know each other, and even a total stranger who's like a Catholic, if I go to the local church and I say to one of the random people in there, fuck dude, I'm stuck, I don't know how to like do this, or I need help with my, I don't know how to change a car tire, something silly or whatever. Or even like, oh man, I can't afford food for my kids or whatever. If you came up with something like that whole community of total strangers that don't know from a bar of soap, that only see you like, maybe when you come in to like do the mass and then they go about their business, you go about yours, maybe you haven't even spoken to, almost every one of them will be like, if they can do something, they'll do something. That's the experience I've had with all the city churches I've gone to.
Hmm.
Um, and now, if you have a community of people that physically live near each other, the help that you get from each other is it's going
Oh no,
to
that I totally agree with. I think it was more about the idea of like doing missionary work for the sake of missionary work, and like
yeah.
if
But
it
I
was
think
inside VR, it would be a kind of like a whole
uh,
new kind of wild west,
I
wouldn't it?
yeah. I mean, I think in a sense you are doing missionary work. I think that's kind of what you're doing, really. But
Oh yeah,
in my way of thinking, I think um, it's a bit early. I think the first thing we should do is build physical communities. Then you can do
don't
missionary
get me
work.
wrong. I'm not even saying that we should think of doing this or anything. It was like I said. I thought at most it was like a fiction story I could think of writing. That would be quite
Oh yeah,
interesting.
yeah. No, I just
Yeah,
led me to thinking. I wasn't saying that that is what you're doing. And besides, you need somebody to spread the word anyway. So it's chicken
yeah.
and egg type thing. But I do still. I'm focused on trying to build a physical community that is
I
here.
agree.
Because
Physical community is always priority anyway. It's just this other stuff about being in digital space and using digital space is a means to an end, isn't it? It's a means to that end ultimately,
absolutely, yeah.
mostly.
Well, that's
And
what we're
even if
doing here.
yeah, yeah, and it's an augmentation in a sense, or an additional kind of tool. In the meantime, it's a parallel thing. They're not, you know.
Yeah. Sam says, had to go to the grocery/wine store. How many loyal henchmen have you now? Oh, we can't reveal our numbers because
Quite a few.
that's right. We have like cells. Underbear says, oh man, I'm working for my aunt for harvest, brother. Oh, you would have come here, you see? Oh well, at least I hope you helping your aunt well. That's good. Ironic
One fourth
Keyboard
to one.
says, what you said about the sedevacantist in meta is more true than you might know. Oh,
Interesting.
very good. Ironic Keyboard, perhaps you need to tie up with Tony and start to just infiltrate. Because I know we're there. Remember that guy in Google that like
No, go on.
fucking it was a few years ago, some guy in Google that blew wide open the whole like internal chat that they were having where he wasn't even saying like, really red pilled or whatever, far right, vicious far right stuff like maths is not racist or
Two
whatever.
plus two equals five.
Yeah, yeah. And you basically expose the fact that in Google there's this like clique of they're just trying to push all anybody who's right normal thinking about 2 plus 2 being 4. They're just like trying to push them out, and like it came to a head where he sued them. He basically said, "Okay, I've now got enough evidence here that you guys are like firing me because of my political thing, not because of my work or anything like that." And he fucking wrecked them, and they had to pay him out a shitload of money. And obviously they tried, stomped on it, which is probably why I don't know about it. But there are guys out there that you can't be exposed to that shit day in day out and not. How big is that bubble? Do you know what I mean? Like you still have to probably go to the supermarket once in a while, or come across a guy like me or you online that just like throws you one of those rude comments that sticks in your brain like a virus and just like.
Some people are already ready for it, though. It's not even the case that for some people, some of these thoughts have just literally never occurred to them.
Yeah,
And in that case, when they do, they're like, "Oh, this is cool. I didn't even realize that was a thing." I've had, kind of religious discussions with people and stuff, and just simple things like a guy will say to me, "Aren't all religions basically the same?" I'm like, "Well, no, they're not. They're just not."
yeah,
And you can demonstrate it within a couple of sentences, and some people will be uncomfortable about that, but others are like, "Oh shit, I never even knew."
yeah,
Crazy. Okay, so why is your religion different then? And you start explaining, and it's genuinely quite. Even if they don't accept it after the conversation, you can tell that they're genuinely interested and kind of
yeah. That
astonished by
that
the
Andrew
whole fact.
Wilson guy cracked me up because he said, "Look, I don't want to get," because there was one of the girls on one of the panels
All right,
says,
yeah.
"Well, I'm a Muslim and I respect you," and he goes, "Yeah, well, I don't respect your religion at all, whatever." And it's like, and I don't want to make this a theological things and whatever terms of service, but yeah. No, but why? We're all because well, how old was Aisha? Like who? It's like I just leave it there. It's just she didn't even realize she'd been hit by a nuclear weapon. It's just like, yeah, just leave it there because we don't, it's not that kind of a show. But I was like, fucking hell. Slap Weasel, hello, James D'Amore. That's right, James D'Amore. Got an Italian surname, D'Amore of love. There you go, Jimmy boy. Yeah, James D'Amore was the Google guy. If you Google him, it's a very interesting story because basically.
Oh yeah, he was an engineer, wasn't he? This was a
Yeah.
while ago, wasn't
Yeah, it was some years
it?
back.
Yeah, I remember this. It was like in 2016 or something.
Ironic
Yeah, I remember
keyboard.
that.
Ironic keyboard says it's my Novus Ordo brother who is having an awakening. Send a prayer that he does. Oh, we will. I will. I'm actually going to say a couple of Hail Marys for him at least. Willie Ramson, some types get a panic attack from being told they need to arrive at work on time. Yeah. Well, yeah. James Damora was the Google guy and witnessed the evil. Indeed. Willie Ram says, heck, people don't believe me when I say don't use chems recreationally. Yeah, I know. Novus Orco might be more persuasive. I will test. Well, I coined the phrase Novus Orco, the new orcs, same as the old orcs. And people at first they were like, it's not spelled Novus Orco. And I'm like, that's the point. And I'd say that, that's the point. And be like, no, but it's order because, it's from the Latin, like new order. And maybe those guys should use cocaine, just to activate something somewhere,
I'll be the first to admit it. There are so many autistic people amongst the SETIs.
Well, they are, but I've always said a little bit of autism is the next evolution.
Oh yeah.
It's
just a shame because then you've got to reel them in a little bit with other things like no, right? It's just like
do not line up all the pencils. You don't need to do that every day. And the bear says,
I spoke to someone about this the other day. They were kind of like they were one of these people who still had this idea that autism is inherently a bad thing or something. I said, well, no, because this was someone who was in my church. They themselves weren't autistic, and you can first point out, well, not everyone who said he is autistic. In fact, the majority aren't. But they're pronounced within the community because their emotions don't get in the way.
Yeah,
like other people's do. So you just say, this is the logic, this is true, and they're like, cool, true, just got to go towards that, right? And
yeah, because it makes sense.
They're socially weird or whatever as a result, they're just like, I don't care, it's just what's true, let's go for it.
Yeah, they can do math, they can do logic. They're more prone to being able to do logic by orders of magnitude. So yeah. Underbear says, I have a pilot friend that flies into Rome. He keeps trying to get me to come over to the Vatican to meet some Novus Ordo jackass priest. I keep telling him to watch his cornhole. Yeah. I mean, I have that with Adam sometimes. Adam Piggott. He even on his blog roll I saw he still has links to Father Peregrine. It's like, why are you linking to a Satanist pretending to obey Catholic clergy? Like, why? Why, Adam? Why? It's like, well, I'm still sometimes some of the things he says. Broken clock twice a day. Satan, boy, Satan! He's just like, he's Australian. Can't be helped.
And he's also apparently part Scottish as well. I thought, how tragic can you get? It's like you're trying to throw a genetic dart at the board, and you've got English in the middle, and you just keep missing.
I mean, if there's any Irish in here, I think it could be worse, right? Could have hit Wales or something.
Scotland's pretty bad.
Still, between Australia and Scotland, come on, I'll pick Scotland every time. I mean, they just, got a bit of a problem with meth, alcohol, and the English language, but, they're still people. Oh, and not understanding how underpants or trousers work, but, at least they're not Australians. Iron Keyboard has got the same humor I've got, because Slapweasel says nuance escapes the extremely autistic. Yeah, but we're not talking about guys who like Rain Man.
Yeah.
Ironic Keyboard goes, my brother is an idiot savant, heavily weighted on the idiot side. Sorry, couldn't resist. It's what I say whenever I speak about my siblings. I go, well, my mother didn't raise any idiots apart from my brother and sister.
Oh, good on you. I wish him all the best.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I do. Yeah, well, I
it's
will.
amazing.
I'm gonna say a couple of praise for him, like I said I would. Wooly Ram says, Father Rappinger is SSPX, I think. And SSPX is recognize and resist. So, yeah. You'd think something like the kilt would be invented in warm climates, but Scottish, so, you know.
No, we've been trying to teach them English for 2,000 years, and they still don't come. You know, well, they pay us taxes, so fuck it.
Yeah, what was that? The joke was like, oh, you can't civilize the Scots. I mean, they don't wear underwear and the nettle is this high. You know?
Yeah. It's just one of those, like, one of the few nations on earth where even the Romans, who were happy to conquer everyone, just got there and were like, "Do you know what? It's not even worth it.
Just build a fucking wall.
Yeah, just pull it off. Can't be asked."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only the extreme pool of patience that existed within the heart of the English who were even worth, like, willing to give it a try. Yeah.
Underbear says, nice to have a laugh with you all, indeed. And Sam says, Rippinger is a blatant homo, if you ask me. I don't know. I don't watch Satanists on the internet on purpose. I don't know. Ironic Keyboard says, my family's Italian Scots. Talk about confused genetic makeup. Ooh, I can see where the autism comes from.
It's like a yin yang symbol of genetic balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Very good. Well, we're now nearly gone for 3 hours, so I think on that happy note.
Let's wrap it up. It's getting late. Well, it's obviously late where you are, but
Yeah, it is.
Get some sleep soon.
Yeah, well, I need to eat something actually. I got hungry again. I'm talking and using my brain a bit. I used up a few calories. That was really good. Thanks, Tony.
It was, yeah.
We'll do another one soon about something else.
Find some more excuse. And like I say, if you get one more golden.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're down to one. We just need one more member, one more subscriber. What?
Yeah.
Thank you both, says Slap Weasel and Ironic Keyboard. Says thanks, that was fun. Underbear sends sounds like Dario. What? Sorry, Dario Franchitti. I don't know who Dario Franchitti is.
Molto strano.
Woolly Ram says the Romans found the Picts just staying in bogs on their necks, unbothered, moisturized, and thriving in their vein. Kind of true.
It's like when people say to me the Scottish are like, well, the Scottish are a noble people. It hits my ears like when people say the horse is a noble animal. So, yeah, but
doesn't even stop to take a shit in the street. That reminds me of that little video clip of that woman in a shopping center, and you got like the camera watching, and she just walks along, and like she's got a long skirt and just like lifts along, and there's a turd left. Like she just takes a dump while walking and leaves a solid turd on the floor. It's just like, oh, what the hell is that? Dario Franchitti is an IndyCar race driver, Scot-Italian. Oh, you mean there's more than one of those creatures?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, by the way, Sam says stop and like the stream before you leave. Thanks, Sam. Sam is a very good PR agent that took it upon himself to market me without rest, really. Definition of nobility, hardest hit. That's a good point.
Very good.
Very good, yeah. Very funny. Oh, I watched a piece of a stream actually called Unsubscribe, and it's basically I think they're all ex-military guys. And it's like, I don't know how their channel is not getting banned because some of the shit they say, it's hilarious. And they just did one with this older dude who does little videos on TikTok with his son, and he just takes the piss of his own son, like brutal. I mean, it's really fucking harsh. They're all like military gun guys. There's like a guy called Brandon Herrera. If you're not into guns on YouTube, you won't know who these people are. It's a guy called Brandon Herrera who does a lot of like gun stuff, sort of like like the original Kyle dude used to do FPS Russia.
Mm-hmm.
He
Oh
was
yeah,
like
I
one of
remember.
them. Yeah.
Quite fun.
So they're like guys that I don't know what the other guys do because I don't know them, but it's a really funny little podcast where they're computer gamers and ex-soldiers, I think.
Oh, okay.
But they come up with some fucking dark humor. That's pretty funny, actually.
Cool.
So yeah. And Sam says, trying to imagine how cheap and carefree a Scot-Italian man would be. Well, basically,
Yeah, you can probably say the same thing about the Scottish Italian women too, but probably not in the nice way.
well, I can't even imagine a Scottish Italian woman existing. I mean, you're talking about some kind of
The
Cro-Magnon
collapsing the wing
throwback.
function.
Yeah, it's gross. Hairy Cro-Magnon throwback to something. I don't know. And I think, oh, he wrote ma'am, so I don't know if he means man or madam. There's no such thing. You can't be a Scotch Italian madam. It's just, I'm getting like, I've got this fucking jaw problem. I'm laughing too much. It's getting sore. All the punches I took in my young days. Need a massage. Yeah, Sam is laughing. Okay. All right, guys. I think thank you very much. Thank you, Tony, for a very, very entertaining and I hope educational and interesting stream.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, mate. Thank you too. All right, God bless you all.
And we should
Your
do one again. We should do one for your other for your unauthorized channel. We should do something, I think, short to the point and unexpected. For the
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think
Well,
it's been officially announced yet, although I suppose it's actually nothing I need to keep secret.
no.
Basically, I've been given the green light to join unauthorized, and
Yeah, good.
I plan to do my first stream there in about a week. Actually, yeah.
Cool.
So I suppose it's a good place to announce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some. I'm going to kind of get myself used to it first for a few weeks before I really settle in. The issue I've got is I don't know if I told you, but I'm moving to France on Wednesday actually.
Oh,
So I'm doing a move. I'm going to move to France for a couple of months, and when I'm there, it's a good opportunity for me to actually just start doing a regular stream.
yeah.
But I'm going to have to come back in December because I've got to do some other things in the UK because I'm getting a European passport. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take a little break. So these 8 weeks or so when I'm in France are going to be my little tester period to kind of get myself used to the platform. And then when
Cool.
I come back and I get myself set up properly, I'll go full force.
Excellent. Good man.
Cool.
We're going to try and send people your way. And just going to say a couple of prayers now for the man's ironic keyboard's brother. Let's get
Yeah, if
Tony
anyone
some.
wants some tips for me, it's well, just subscribe to my channel. Really, I mean, I do have a Patreon. To be fair, if anyone wants to give me money for free, I'm not going to argue
Oh,
about it.
okay. So is that all on your blog that we put the
Just
thing?
all the links are available through. I mean, my website link is the main. What's your UATE channel name? It's not been released yet. That's why
Okay.
it's early days. I'm gonna start launching in about a week or two.
Good.
So try and keep everyone notified. Just keep an eye out on there, basically.
Yeah.
Or if you're on Social Galactic, I'll probably announce it. Yeah, the website I've got is the main hub for everything I do. So you can go through there. There's a donate page on my website if you want to use that. I think my Patreon is linked on my website. If not, it's linked through my YouTube channel for sure. Oh no,
Which
my
is on your
Patreon.
website. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's all a big kind of it's my Patreon is on my website. It is. And the other thing I don't mention much is that I do actually offer um, apologetic sessions. So if you guys want to contribute but actually want to get something out of it too, maybe join one of our seminars. And
Yeah.
they're basically like sparring sessions for apologetics, right? It's not just a lecture. Like the way we do it is I basically just put people in on the spot. So maybe you come in and I'll say, "Oh, Giuseppe, you pretend to be a Muslim, right?"
Yeah.
And try to tell John why he's wrong about Catholicism, and we play it off each other that way.
That's cool. Well,
Something
if
like
you want me to play devil's advocate in one of those things, let me know. I'm happy to do it. So
sure,
yeah.
yeah. It's a good way to train people because part of the actual learning process is having people think about the argument from the other person's point of view.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
actually
of
part of
course.
the challenge of it. So, yeah, if anyone's interested in that,
Yeah.
send me a message or
You got to
jump
know
on.
your enemy to take him out properly. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. God bless you. I'm going to go say my Hail Marys now before I forget to do it for Ironic Keyboard. And thank you all for being here. God bless every one of you, and God bless you, Tony. Thanks.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte.